feel something change inside of me. The inner human slowly dead in me. I feel it come alive. The darkness brings me light. There ain't no stopping it, and you will never have from me. Pain of the change. What have I become? A creature of the night. Ruled by moonlight. The pain of the change. This body's no longer mine. Feel wild and free, but caged at the same time. Excited to be human, think human, feel human. A hunger's arising inside of me. The beast is alive and break it free. Excited to be human, think human, feel human. Keep putting more chains on the beast. Hope it don't break loose. You better hope so too. I'm still inside. I'm still here. What have I done? When did this all start? I have become a monster in the dark. A hunger like no other. Running on instinct. What's this creature? Always inside of me. The pain of the change. What have I become? A creature of the night. Ruled by moonlight. The pain of the change. This body's no longer mine. Feel wild and free, but caged at the same time. Excited to be human, think human, feel human. A hunger's arising inside of me. The beast is alive and break it free. Excited to be human, think human, feel human. Keep putting more chains on the beast. Hope it don't break loose. You better hope so too. Whoa, you better hope so too. Whoa, you better hope so too.
Welcome, folks. Welcome to a special edition of Paranormal Roundtable. I guess it's special. I guess it's because it's not our normal. It's a Saturday, but it's going to be the norm because we're going to do this every Saturday for this month and next month. Back it up, good. Showing we got 112 people in there in the chat.
There's a chat on the side.
Cool. We'll let the chat fill up a little bit, folks, and then we'll bring our guests on and we'll start talking. We got some things to talk about. Let me figure something out real quick. It's been a very interesting day for me. I've just learned something. I mean, I already knew this. It's not like it's something new for me. It's like I didn't know this already, but I got to get organized. I got to get organized. I made the announcement yesterday for those of you who may or may not have heard. We're getting syndicated, which means we're going to be on TV. So we got to make a show every week for the syndication. That's all we got left to do. We're just going to have a meeting, and I got to show them that I have the episodes to go. So Yeah. It's not hard to do. I can probably just upload, episodes we've already done, but it's got to be visual. Like, you got to, because you're going to be on television. You can't just put a podcast where people talking on TV. It's not how it works. So. Let's get a couple notes here together. So, how's everybody doing tonight? I hope everybody's is having a good weekend up to this point. Bless you. I hope that everybody's happy and healthy. I'm looking toward the future. We got a lot going on, and I'm really, really excited about where the future is going to head, where it's going to take us. I do want to make the announcement right now, while I got you on. I'll probably say it again tomorrow just in case, because sometimes people listen, they'll catch one show and not another. We only hit like maybe 420 people last night in the chat last night, but then I wake up and there's a bunch of people that went and watched it. So we get a lot more people. I guess what we're dealing with on Fridays, people watch the replay. That's what it seems like. So, but if in case you didn't know, I wanted to make the announcement, that and maybe it's a little premature. I don't know. But I've decided to shelve, for now at least, 2 books that I was working on. And I'm just going to push with the one book because I did this last time. I this is what I'm talking about, trying to get organized, trying to get your thoughts organized. And I did this where I started writing the book, and I got like halfway through it, and then I was like, it's not like writer's block. It's just like I couldn't go any further with it. And it's the MK Ultra. And when my guests come on tonight, I'm going to talk to them a little bit about that, and then we'll get into that. But the vampire book is still a go, and I'm about 2 chapters into that. I think it's hard to gauge. And then you're doing all this stuff, and we're still trying to get the board game out. And my wife is now saying, "Hey, I think it's time to release my album." So, okay. So imagine if you're drowning and, someone just backs a truck up and dumps books and board games and hoodies on top of you. That's how I feel right now, on top of everything else. And then another big stone that says your career, which was not this. It was something else. And then you're still trying to tread water and stay awake, stay afloat. That's kind of how I feel right now. But enough about me. Let's bring our guests on. What's going on, my brother? How you doing?
Let me unmute myself. How you doing tonight, Wolf? What's going on, everybody?
Let me put my headphones on so I can hear these guys. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. Okay. So, Chris, welcome back for
Yes,
last
sir.
week. Chris is going to be my host. You're going to be my host every Saturday, right, Chris?
Huh? Wait,
Yeah.
me or the other guy?
No, you. I nominated you. You're going to be here every week.
Can I just say, I'm based like in a closet right here, so you might hear my kids running around or my wife yelling at the kids. So
Well, you better spank them
for that now. Nah, I don't know.
You better go. You better start spanking.
I'm soft-spoken guy. It's that dad voice. You need the dad voice.
You got. Hey, you just mute it, and we see you doing this. We know you're telling them what to do. That's it.
If I turn the camera off, you'll know where I went.
I grew up. I had a Mexican mom, so my mom knew how to talk with just her expressions and her fingers, because she was one of those Mexican moms who she didn't want to go out in public. Our town where we lived in was predominantly, Anglo. And she was like, "You're not going to embarrass me in front of these people." And so go to the store, and she'd be like, real quietly, and then look around, smile, and then.
My mother was like 4'11", and we were terrified of her.
Really?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So, Bass, are you going to stay hidden? You're going to be a shadow in the night, or what?
Put stuff on camera.
Yeah, I got some stuff going on in the background. I never put myself on camera.
Yeah.
Well, he just assumes that you see me, you see him. I just have a better beard.
Y'all are twins. I've
Exactly.
seen you both side by side. So at the first conference. So yeah, it's interesting because we're friends and we've been friends for years. And I actually saw something on you guys, and it was proof. Like you have something that shows. And we're going to get into that tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And Chris, if you haven't met Truth and Bass, Truth is the guy above you, and Bass to your right. They're twins and abductees.
Ah,
And so, yeah, it's very interesting. We're going to get into some interesting stuff tonight. And I think that these shows, like I said last Saturday, are some of the most pivotal and most important shows that we could do, because it's going to tell a lot about what we're dealing with and what we're looking at. You guys were at my conference, the first one, the one in Tennessee.
Yep.
The second one was bigger. I think it was bigger and better, but the first one, it was the first one. You know, the first one is like, you can't beat the first one. It's like the first one. We did something that had never been done.
It's
Make
like
that
being
Dogman
like being
conference.
at the first Woodstock. You'll never see it again.
We'll never see it again.
Yeah.
It was amazing, the collaborations that came out of it, but then some of the negativity, and then we had to deal with it. But it is what it is. I mean, this field is littered with a bunch of malcontents that do nothings, and then they want to come after you and steal your work and whatever. If you don't know, folks, Chris, tell them your coordinates, the name of your show.
I have a podcast each week. It's called Strange Things with Chris James, and we talk about exactly that. If it's strange, it's on the show. UFOs, Bigfoot, Dogman, weird conspiracies, everything.
Yeah. And then in the name of your show, Truth?
It's an impromptu truth, and we talk about just about everything, like current events. Mainly, last few weeks it's been mainly about a Reddit series that I've been following, and we actually managed to get the author to come on, and we did a 3-hour show with him. But we started out with me sitting down with my cell phone or just a laptop microphone, interviewing people I knew about stuff that they had experienced, haunted houses, cryptids running across the field in front of them, all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, that was pretty much it.
Wow, interesting. I need to go check that out. And so when we were at the first conference, we started talking, in particular after the conference.
Mhm.
And we delved into a little bit about your history and what you guys, what brought you into all this. And you guys had an interesting story to tell, and I'm going to let you tell it. And you have like what appears to be implants.
I did send you that video yesterday, and you saw that, right? I found that in my shin 2 years ago.
Yeah, you showed it at the conference too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I saw it up close. It was amazing.
all right, so I'll just dive into this. So I want to start off by saying, like, this happened to my brother, myself, and our very close cousin back in 2003. And to this day, he still blames me for it. Like, every time we talk about it, every time it comes up, he's like, yo, this is your fault. And I own it. I'm going to look you in the camera and say, don't go chasing lights. Right? It's not going to end well for you.
But
Right,
he
so-
is willing to talk now, though.
Yeah, he's come around now. It's been 20 years. And in this 20 years, we've actually started gathering more information up about our family, like our mother, our aunt, a bunch of relatives that have had weird experiences also. But this is what happened to us. So in 2003, it was late fall. Now, my car played a large part in this. I drove a 1990 Honda Accord 2-door 5-speed, the one with the box butt, right? So it was early in the afternoon, and we called my cousin Berger, and we was like, yo, you want to come up, hang out, play some video games, whatnot? He was like, sure. So he lives in Orange County, which is not his house exactly is like maybe 15 minutes from Pine Bush, which if you're into the UFO lore, Pine Bush is like UFO capital of New York. And they have the Pine Bush UFO festival every year and everything like that. So we drove down there, picked him up, came up to our house, and we were playing video games and hanging out all day like that. So around like 6:45, we decided to go back to drive back down to his town, which he lived in Middletown, New York. Right. So I to this day I'm not good with exit numbers, but I could tell you the exit name of it. So we left the house around 6:45. Right. I'm in the driver's seat, Bass is in the passenger seat, and my cousin's in the back seat. Now I'm going to add this to this part. At the time, I weighed about 350 pounds, and my cousin was really close to that. And Bass was like, I don't know, about two and change. So I think that played a part in this because it, we'll get to that. So we hop on Route 17 heading south, going towards Orange County. And when you're heading south, you go over Wirtsboro Mountain,
No,
right? And when you come
east.
over, oh, east. Sorry, like I said, I'm bad with directions. But where you come up over Wirtsboro Mountain, and at the top of the mountain, it's a split in the rock face, and there's a rock face on this side and a rock face on this side, and then an overpass. When you get under the overpass, there's a roundabout where the state police usually sit, right? And then you go a little bit further down, and on this side of the road, that rock face clears out, and you can see off in the horizon for miles. Right now, we've driven on this road down this strip, going to my cousin's house where the parents, ourselves, hundreds of times. Right. So I'm driving and we come down, start going down towards the Bloomingburg exit. And I look off to the left and it's open space. And in this open space, there's three balls of light shaped in a triangle. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, what the hell is that? Right. Because we've driven on this road before and I've never seen them shaped like that before. So I look back at the road because I'm doing like 70. So looking back at the road, I look back up and the two bottom lights had disappeared. I don't know where they went. And I'm like, what the hell? So I look back at the road and now we get down a little further and now I've got Bass has got my attention. I have his attention. He's like, what are you looking at? And I'm looking out the window and I'm like, two of those lights just disappeared. And he looks over, he's like, what? And I'm like, this is where I wanted to go see the lights. I wanted to go find them. Now I've clocked this drive from the spot we saw the light. Well, I saw the lights to the Fair Oaks exit was 4.5 miles. We drove 4.5 miles on the highway from the spot I saw those lights, got off the Fair Oaks exit. If you make a left and it puts you on the back road, and then you make another left, it puts you on an overpass going back across 17. We went across the overpass and ended up on some back roads. I couldn't tell you what the names of the roads were, but this in 03, there it was still being developed. There was like just trees and fields and everything like that. We drove another half a mile from that exit down these back roads, and have you ever been told don't nose in? Like don't nose your car in?
Yeah.
Well, I nosed my car in and I got out. I turned it off and I got out. And we're parked and there's a field. It's a field and there's trees on your left, trees on your right, and just a big ball, just a big space in the middle. I get out of the car, I turn it off, and Bass and my cousin start losing they start losing it. And they're like, what the hell are you doing? Get back in the car. And I'm like, yo, do you see this? That's when we see this big ball of white light hanging out in the middle of this field. So I'm like, what the hell is that? And now that I can hear them like really spazzing out, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, is that getting bigger? And I lean into the car because I still have my door open. I'm like, I remember this. I'm like, yo, is that getting bigger? And they're yelling like crazy now. And then it came to I realized it wasn't getting bigger. It was coming towards the car. And now I remember getting in the car. Now remember, it's a 5-seat. I remember getting in the car. I remember closing the door, and I remember turning the ignition. I do not remember the car starting. I do not remember reversing, and I do not remember backtracking over that road. After I got in the car, the next thing I remembered was being on a back road heading like into my cousin's town, and I was looking out of my driver's side window, and that ball of white light was hanging in the sky, like pacing us. And then it broke off, and we ended up going to my cousin's house. When we got to my cousin's house, his dad like laid into us, and we just like didn't really like comprehend why he was just losing it on us. So my cousin walked upstairs, and normally me and Bass would have just hung out there for a little while because we thought it was like 7:30. But he was like, "Nah, whatever. We'll just leave." So we got in the car and we left, and it was a weird feeling. Like, yo, something weird happened. What the hell happened? So we got to the house and we didn't really talk about it. And then like a day later, he was like, "Yo, we didn't get to Burger's house until like 9:30." Dude, we saw the first from when we saw that ball of light, it was almost 7:00, and we didn't get to my cousin's house until 9:30. And I'm sorry for turning my camera off.
No, that's fine.
But it's because now that he's willing to talk about this stuff, it hits me a little harder because I know it's my fault because I'm the one that wanted to go. I wanted to go see this light, and like we talked about this with Tony Merkel on the Confessionals. Great show, great guy, and he brought up the fact that maybe it was like a cat and mouse thing. Maybe I was meant to go find that light. Because how the hell did I end up in a perfect field with a ball of white light? I don't know.
Wow.
Since then we've all of us have me, Burger, and my cousin. Me, Burger, and Bass have woken up with. At one point, we did have identical scars on our backs. As you saw at the conference, Bass has something in his foot. As the video I showed you, I have something in my shin. It's weird. We've woken up with like our clothes on backwards, like different clothes than when we went to sleep in. And I think maybe that experience has like it's kind of it might have drew them to us now because we've actually seen stuff since 2003. We've seen stuff we've seen stuff with people that we know, and at first they were like, "Oh, you guys are full of it," and then they happen to be with us when a manta ray shaped craft flies over us, and they're like, "What the hell is that?" And it's like, "We told you," like, and now
that one was kind of big. That flew like 100 yards above the tree line. Like
how long after the initial loss of time and all that did you see that craft?
That was only a couple of years after that.
Wow.
Now the thing is, right? So I have kids. Bass doesn't have any, and my cousin has kids. I haven't heard anything from mine in regards to this stuff, but he would tell us all the time that his daughters were experiencing like things poking at their feet at night. And at one point, one of his daughters said, "Don't let the green men take me." Like, my kids haven't said anything to me like that, but his two oldest daughters have.
Well,
told him that.
no, you can't really say that because the one woke up with that needle point behind his ear.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I can send you that picture. My 8-year-old woke up with a needle point behind his right ear. But yeah, I think this has led to a lifetime of UFO experiences.
Well, me personally, I believe it runs in our family because we have a lot of cousins who have seen strange stuff. Uncles, on both sides of the family, on my mom's side and my father's side. So,
wow.
I think once they clue into a bloodline and they see something, they follow that bloodline, because on both sides of the family, me and Truth are the only set of twins.
Yep.
And I have I can't even count how many cousins I have.
Hundreds of cousins.
Hmm. So you guys have been. Is this an ongoing thing? Is it still happening?
I'll put myself back on camera now. Well, like I said, I sent you the message the other night. I think something might have happened in the last few weeks. About a week and a half ago, I woke up naked. I don't sleep naked, not at all, not a thing I do. And when I woke up, I was naked, and there was a needlepoint blood clot right there. I sent you Wolf. I sent you that picture.
Mm.
And when I sent that picture to my cousin, he lost it again and said, "This is all your fault."
Yeah, I mean, it's
I mean, it's been 20 years. I own up to it. Like for a while, I was like, what the hell is going on? Like there would be a burning sensation right here. And it would feel like there was a needle point right underneath the skin, and you couldn't scratch it or anything, and it would go on for about 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden it would stop. And I'm pretty sure my cousin had the same thing happening to him around that time.
There's so many things to unwrap here with this. I'll start with this. There have been I've done a lot of work with abductees, especially as in the last couple of years, and it seems like there's always some sort of pattern, but not always, but there's quite often there's a pattern, and it'll begin with like what happened to you guys, but then it'll go on to the children. And then they'll have cousins and people that will kind of put the pieces together. One lady in Florida had been being abducted since she was a child, and she didn't know that her first cousin was being abducted. She was 7 when she remembers, and then her name is Amber. But when she was 17, when she found out that her cousin Corey was being abducted, and I was like, oh my gosh. So like, how long? Like 10 years of both of them kind of suffering in silence and not really until they realized that it wasn't all like a dream, because a lot of times it feels like it's a dream. I have a friend who had this dream when we were in high school, and he's still, and he was abducted from an apartment complex we lived at when I was a teenager. And it was a very busy complex still to this day. There's a lot of people around there, bunches and bunches of people that live. It's a huge complex. At that time, it was full of college kids. And he was pulled right out of his house, out of his apartment. And it was weird because he was like, he had this dream that he was floating, and then he was like flying quickly through the air. And then he was like, he was aboard this craft briefly, and then he was back in his bed. But talking to him not too long ago, about 6 months ago, he's still having these abduction scenarios. It's been going on since we were 16. We're both 16 at the time. 16 years old, and it's still happening. Like he'll do the same thing, wake up with his clothes on backwards, or he'll have no pants,
You bring up the dream thing. Now, I'll tell you this. I don't know if Berger experienced this, but on the same night, me and Bass had dreams because I called him up spazzing and talking about what I saw, and he was like, "Yo, I had this dream." So I'll go into it, and then he can tell you what he saw what he saw in his dream. So in this dream, I was sitting in a dark transport, and then I was surrounded by a couple guys in military garb, and the latch opened. I was handed off to 2 other guys in black military garb, and walked into the side of a damn mountain. And then that's all I remember in that dream. And then like I called Bass up, and I was spazzing. I was like, yo, what the hell? I told him exactly what I saw, like what they look like the all the military gear they had on, and he was like, "Yo, this happened." Can you tell them yours, Bass?
So what I remember in my dream was I was like the graded floors they use for like construction. I was being walked down one of those graded floors with a smooth tunnel with a strange like fluorescent light coming like I don't know, it was like it was just there. It's hard to describe. And I was being walked down with two people on my side. I didn't see who they were, but there was two people on my side, and I was being walked down this hallway or whatever you want to call it, tunnel, to a table. And when I got to the table, that's when I woke up.
Oh,
We
man.
had those the same night.
Have either of y'all looked into regressive hypnosis, perhaps to find out what's really going on?
We've thrown it back and forth, and I've always had the point of contention. Like, I've listened to the Betty and Barney Hill tapes,
Mhm.
and that stuff is terrifying, man. Like listening to Barney Hill, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it's just I think it would eventually be on like a bucket list thing for me, but like not right now. I don't think I'm ready to quite open. Like, we've just now, after 20 years, got my cousin to start talking about it. I don't think I'm ready to open that can of worms just yet.
Oh, I want to say like a year and a half ago, we actually told our story to a remote viewer, and he was able to tell us what basically what happened.
Yeah, and we've
And
never.
we did that live on the air too. That was crazy.
I'll tell you this: on our show, we've done hundreds of streams. I have never, ever ended a stream because of something, and I cut that stream short because what I was being told did not sit well with me at all. Because it was
And this
more.
this guy is good too. Like, he's really good at what he does.
What we were told by the remote viewer was it was almost like a setup. Like they purposefully did that to get us to that location. And what did he say when he remote viewed that light, Bass?
He said it was so bright that it was leaving spots in his eyes.
And then
Wow.
what he told us after that is what didn't it didn't sit well with me. It still doesn't. He said that these beings had us on this craft or wherever the hell they had us, and they had me and Bass sat on a couple benches having a full-on back and forth conversation with us, while my cousin was off in the corner like they wanted nothing to do with him. So like, what was that about? If this is true, if what this remote viewer saw was true, what was that about?
Who was the remote viewer? Like somebody you knew that you trusted? You
Yeah, pretty cool gentleman. Pretty cool gentleman.
yeah, and they
Go ahead.
wanted nothing to do with your cousin, and that's not uncommon because they're usually they have a target.
I'm thinking it was almost like, because I've thought about this. If in the percentage of population that are identical twins, right? That's an anomaly, right? That's a small anomaly.
Mhm.
How many sets of identical twins have experienced this stuff and they just don't realize it because they're picking up this anomaly out of the whole control group. You know what I mean? I don't know. And I'd like to know why and what the hell it was about, but it's not to the point where I'm gonna subject myself to nightmares possibly what's it? And the reason I mentioned me and my cousin and my brother's weight in this is because remember I said I had a 2-door car. I'm 350 pounds sitting in the front seat. My cousin, 300 pounds sitting in the back seat. If they took all of us, how did they do it? Because if they grabbed me, right, they drug me out of the seat. They drug Bass out of the seat. He had to be awake maybe a little bit longer because they had to get him out of that back seat. Because remember, it's a 2-door car. It's a whole old Honda. You had to hit the latch on the side and slide that thing up. Unless they can beam you out, unless we were beamed out of the damn thing. I don't know. All I know is I got 2 hours I got 2 hours of missing time from 20 years ago that it's still playing a huge part. Like I think that's why me and Bass have not for nothing, but after that we really dove into like the aliens and the UFOs and the conspiracies and everything like that.
Mhm.
Like we would digest that stuff like
And that's when you was getting good information.
Like it was nobody's business, just ingesting everything about abductions, alien bases, implants, the UFO technology, whistleblowers, anything we could get our hands on. We had to have, we had to get it. I like my little library here, it's way smaller. Like if I had all my books from back in the day, all these shelves would be full, and it was 95% UFO books.
Yeah, that happened to me too. Well, not with the abduction, but after I saw what people term the dog man. I don't know what it was. It looked like a freaking werewolf to me. But yeah, anything I get my hands on. Of course, this is 1990. We didn't have the internet and all that. So I went to the library and devoured every book I could about werewolves and any reports of some sort of upright canine, and just kind of became my own investigator. I had to go and interview bunches and bunches of people. Funny thing is, when I started doing those investigations, especially later on when I was in my mid to late 20s, I got a lot more serious about investigating reports that were further flung all over Central Texas. And I'd put a percentage on it. I've done some research in the last 2 weeks just for this show, just for this particular show. And I came up with 34%. 34% saw either UFOs, and 17%, that's the number I can't, was 17 to 18% had been abductees seeing the dogman. Me and Barton did the same thing with the Bigfoot thing, and we put a percentage on that, and we were at about 70% of the people that we interviewed for the Bigfoot, and some of those people ended up in my books. And I would say all but maybe 4 of the people who were in the Dogman book, yeah, had seen UFOs. 2 in particular said that they had had experiences that we didn't get into in the book because the book was werewolves and the Dogman phenomena. But heck, it could have been, about all of this. I mean, that's why I think this is important. I got a quick one for you. I had a security guard out of Santa Fe who was working in a parking garage, lifelong abductee. Started watching my show back in 2020 during the pandemic. Everybody was at home, couldn't do anything. And if you did go outside, everything closed at 8:00 because everybody knows that's when you get sick. So you couldn't go out at 8:00 because that's when it attacks, right? When viruses attack. So anyway, he was out there doing his job, and he's like, and it was like a ghost town. There was nobody out there, and Santa Fe is known for. That and Albuquerque both are known for big time UFO. And he sees this really like deep, blue pulsating glowing orb, and he knew it wasn't a car light. And he's like, and I went onto the second floor to check it out. He goes, but in my mind, in my subconscious, I already knew what it was. And about 2 weeks prior to that, he had seen one of these balls of light in his backyard, and when he looked in the backyard, he's a single guy who lives alone. He's divorced. But he said when the light kind of like went through the wooden fence and was gone, he sees for about 5-6 seconds, which if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's enough time to see what you're looking at. He saw
Absolutely.
a full-on werewolf-looking being, and like he put his shoes on. He goes, I don't know what possessed me. I just went outside just to go and look off of the deck to just see if what I was seeing was real. Of course, it was gone. And he's like, I don't know where it went or how it could have disappeared. But and I said, do you think it was connected to the orb? He said, the weird thing is that he said, well, this thing happened 2 weeks later that he saw this orb in this parking garage. Then he had missing time. It was 2 a.m. And there was nobody around. I mean, because everybody's inside hiding, you know. And he said, I woke up next to a car on the ground with my security shirt unbuttoned. I had an undershirt on, he said, you know, and it was unbuttoned. His jacket was missing. You didn't know where his jacket was. And he had been laying there for at least 4 hours. It was almost 6 o'clock. You know, and he's like, if I passed out somehow, I don't know how I did. He goes, I don't get seizures. I don't have he's like, I have a brother who gets seizures. So he knows I know what that is. I don't have them, he said. But I was by a car. I was just laying there. And so I thought it was quite interesting when this guy, we'll call him Sean, but he said, you know, when you're seeing something like that, you know, you've been an abductee for years, you know. He's a 37-year-old man now, but it's 35, I guess 35 or whatever, 34 when that happened. And he said one of the reasons why he divorced was because she didn't take it seriously what was happening to him. And even when these beings, and he described some of them too, when they come right into the bedroom, she's fully asleep, never wakes up, is not cognizant of it. He could be crying, screaming, whatever. It doesn't matter. She doesn't wake up. And then she tells him, well, it's all in your head. Don't talk about it. You're scaring the kids. And he's like, I'm scared. You know, I know the kids are scared. I'm scared. You know, I'm terrified. You know, he goes, they pulled me out of the shower one time. I woke up on the floor. And then she says, well, you must be having seizures because Mike that's his brother. He has seizures. He's like, no, I don't have seizures. He's like, Mikey's had them his whole life. I've never had a seizure in my life. He's like, this is not seizures. I'm not having hallucinations. And then when he saw this dogman creature, now here's the interesting thing. He was listening to reports on another podcast. And I know the podcast, I know who it is, but it's not important. It was somebody who that's what they talk about. And he goes, and maybe that influenced me because for 2 days I was just binge, you know, listening to it, whatever. And he's like, you know, and first thing I when he said that, I got really offended. I was like, why are you listening to that crap and not mine? And he said he was already he goes, I was already caught up on yours. So I went and started I said, okay, now we'll get back. No, I didn't care. But anyway, he was listening. So he thought maybe it influenced him. And I thought, what if these beings have the ability to take a form of whatever it is that they think that you're going to be susceptible to? Because it was weird. I mean, like he said, you know, I'm not. He goes, I'm terrified of the dogman phenomena but I ran outside to go look, and
You know,
that day no missing time. But then 2 weeks later at work, you know,
when me and Bass were looking into this stuff in the earliest 2000s, you would often see that, like Whitley Strieber said, there would be reports of like clowns. These things things would show up as clowns to people.
oh yeah,
And that could kind of be telling about like why some people are deathly afraid of clowns.
Mhm.
Maybe these things that appeared to clowns appeared as clowns to them when they were younger, and subconsciously they are completely terrified of them. Like we have a best friend, we have a dude we grew up with. He saw a clown at Halloween one night. He took off running back towards the bus, and we didn't see him right the rest of the night. So
Yeah, he said, yeah.
I believe Daryl Sims mentioned when he had his abduction experience that he remembers
I'll be right back,
seeing
folks.
a
No, go ahead and
clown.
talk.
He remembers seeing a clown in his room, and he knows it wasn't really a clown. He thinks it was the alien projecting this image into his mind. I think it was Daryl, but you get to my age, you start to remember things that didn't happen. I talked to him a lot, but I can't remember everything we say. And why would he remember seeing a clown when he knows it was actually an alien?
Um, what do they call it? They call those screen memories.
Hmm.
So what they do is they I guess project what
Yeah.
what they think would be nice for you to see, and then that covers up their gruesome looks or whatever they're trying to do to you. So you don't correlate, say, being taken out of your bedroom by an evil being being correlated being taken out of your bedroom by Happy the Clown. You know what I
He
mean?
was also mentioning in his book that when you have an abduction experience and they implant a memory, in his mind it was the clown. He said that the memory, if it ever does come forward, is also a false memory because there's something hidden deeper than that. It's an interesting book if you ever get a chance. Daryl Sims, the alien hunter. He
Yeah.
also does regression therapy if you ever decide that you do want to give it a shot.
Now, I've a gentleman I've actually researched a lot into was Dr. David Jacobs, and
Mhm.
I read his book, The Threat. His theory about the human abductions, and the the hybridization program that they are quite possibly working on.
Mhm.
Now, I'll tell you this: I, like I said, I've been into this for years, and at the time that that book came out, I had loaned it to a girl I was dating, and she was a Jersey girl, right? So I loaned her this book, and she's like, "Well, I'll read it." She called me a week later and was like, "Oh my God!" Like, it absolutely terrified her what was in that book,
Mhm.
and like you all. All right, so once they get a hold of you and they say find something in your genetics or what have you that they liken to, that's when the trail starts, right? That's when they start picking up your children, because your children are your progeny. They're your genetics. They're getting a piece of your genetics, so they're going to probably abduct your children, because those genetics that they took an interest in when they took you are going to be in your children. So it's going to be an ongoing cycle, right? And that's what makes me nervous about this,
Mhm.
See,
because I have 5 boys.
Yikes.
I have 5 boys, and I don't know what the hell happened to me 20 years ago. I don't want them to go through something like that. They wake up. Oh, 1 second. Hold on.
well, that goes back to what I was saying about it probably ties into bloodlines. Our great grandfather served in World War One. Our grandfather served in World War Two, and I have numerous uncles that served in the military. But we had this one very peculiar uncle, strange uncle. Um, After he passed away, my cousin had his DNA sent off for testing, and 3 times it came back inconclusive.
Hmm.
And man, I love my uncle, but he was a strange duck, man.
That's what uncles are supposed to do. They're supposed to be strange.
Yeah. As long as they're not
He's a
creepy,
strange
that's,
guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I am the strange uncle in our family. I'm not the
Now he
creepy
had,
one.
now he had like you ever see like it's kind of like a movie where you take a piece of paper and you put it into a book, and they cut out squares and it gives you letters that you have to put out like some kind of code. He had this one book that my cousin sent me pictures of, very strange, and it had to do with like alien abductions and stuff like that, but he never got a chance to ask my uncle about it.
Hmm. Is that book still in your family?
I can message my cousin, he probably has it.
It would be not. I'm not asking you to send it to me, but it'd be interesting if one of y'all could look at it and see if you can decipher anything from just looking at the cutouts, and perhaps find some kind of answers to something. or
Now,
more than likely more questions.
the story that I got behind the book is that my uncle got it from this library that was, well, this train station that was turned into a library right in the heart of Middletown, New York. And like he was going through the esoteric era and all the strange stuff, and he found this one book, and he like just grabbed it and took it. He was supposed to bring it back, but he just kept it.
Sorry about that, guys. Five boys.
You
Come
gotta
out.
you gotta be a dad. That's how it goes.
My cats are all over the place right now.
Oh, dude, I got 2 cats, 2 dogs, 5 boys. My house is full.
Yeah.
All right, I'm sorry for interrupting.
My dad used to always say, if all the problems in the world were hung on a tree, we would each pick our own. Because my problems are nothing compared to other people's problems. So I guess I don't really have any problems.
Now, truth, I was talking about Uncle Perry.
Yeah, Uncle Perry's a very interesting man.
Yeah, he was mentioning the book with the cutouts for the letters.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We'll have to message our cousin about that.
Yeah.
Because
It'd be
he has all his
interesting.
stuff.
He actually might be awake right now.
I got a weird story for you guys. I have a friend that I grew up with, and he's black. He's black, and his name's Edwin. And I haven't talked to him in several years. But my other friend Theo, and he's black too. And we all played ball together. We all grew up together. And one of the things I remember Edwin, when you're talking about uncles, and this is something I've been wanting to talk about on the show. And I wanted to, when we decided we were going to do this about a month ago, we've been talking about this for a while. And I thought this is a good time to talk about this. And so when his uncle died, his uncle's name was Colin, but when he was, I only met him once or twice because he would go through these periods where he would have a girlfriend or something, and then he'd move back in with his sister. Yeah, because that was Edwin's mom's brother, and he was like one of those guys who could never get his stuff together or whatever. And when he passed away, they went to his apartment to move a bunch of his stuff, and I actually helped. I went over there with a couple of my friends, and we all went over there, and we helped move some of the stuff. So I was actually just grabbing things and putting them in the boxes and helping him move them out, whatever. He died. He had a heart attack, and he lived alone. And he was always a nice guy to me. He wasn't like a bad person or anything. Little odd. I always thought he was a little odd. And like I said, I didn't know him that well, but the stories they would tell me was that he was eccentric, to say the least. And he actually made pretty good money. But when he died, he had a sketch. He had a bunch of sketchbooks, but he had one sketchbook in particular that was just full of like what Barton Nunley would call inhumanoids, like pictures. And some of the pictures, and I know since I've been doing the show, when I first started doing the show toward the end of 2019, Edwin had reached out to me, and I haven't talked to him much because went to Dubai for a while and was working. And then he came back, and then he went overseas again, and he loves it over there. So, I mean, it's like a paradise, he says, but I haven't been there. And so he had told me, he says, dude, I had these pictures. And my co-host, my former co-host, had reached out to him and said, hey, can you send me some of those sketches? And he did. He sent him a bunch of copies of them. And so the late Armando, I don't know whatever happened, but I'm pretty sure he had those sketches. And so Edwin's overseas right now. It'd be impossible to get a hold of him, but maybe when he comes back, I can try to get a hold of him. Some of those sketches, he had them categorized too. And he had these gray alien looking creatures that were like the small diminutive ones. And then he would have like bigger ones, tall ones. And then he had some with these big bulbous heads and ones that looked blue. And it was just, and Mondo had those sketches, and we had so much going on with the Dog Man and Bigfoot and crawlers and ghosts and everything you could think of. And we had planned on eventually, getting in. When Armando passed away, it happened so quick. Like I had he went in, he had, the what do you call it? the virus, and he
Mhm.
got really sick, and then he was just gone 2 days, and so it happened so fast. I don't know whatever happened to those sketches yet, but I can try to get a hold of Edwin and see if he could. But what the conclusion that him and his brother came to was that their uncle was a lifelong abductee, and he had an amazing memory. And so I think he was sketching and drawing these from memory. Interesting thing, though, what really piqued my interest about the whole sketchbook was he had these wolf-like, dog-like, I guess you'd call them wolf-like, whatever creatures in there too, and some that looked like Bigfoot with like wings. And this was a guy that, as far as they know, was not interested in anything of the occult. He didn't have this whatever, but he had hundreds of sketches of UFOs, different types of craft, things like that. And so I think that's interesting that you're talking about. It's just it's a weird thing. It's a really weird thing. And also the fact that you guys are twins. I know two females who are, their dad is African American, their mother was German, and they actually grew up. They didn't grow up in Germany though. They grew up in Slovenia, but they actually were lifelong abductees too. And I thought it was interesting that they were twins, and they're half African American. And another interesting sidelight to that is the show we did called The Serbian Werewolf. They grew up one town away from the guy that where he owned that castle where that happened in Serbia. It was on the border with Croatia. There was all this war going on. And he worked in the town, like right next door to their town. And one day when he was driving back to go back to Serbia, he was just on the road, and he saw what he thought was a ball of light, turned out to be a UFO. So I don't know if that means anything, but it's weird how these dots connect, And I've always wondered about that. If there's anything to this, like that, there's just one big web of a pattern. And
I've
go
looked
ahead.
at it. I've looked at it this way. It's a 1,000-piece puzzle, right?
Yeah.
And you'll never, if you're missing we've all put together those type of puzzles. And what happens when you're missing a piece? You don't have it. You need every piece. And I think to figure out exactly what's going on, and this is in regards to UFOs, this is in regards to cryptids, the paranormal, demonic stuff, angelic stuff, everything. You have to look at it as a 1,000-piece puzzle, and you need every piece. You just can't be, I'm just going to stay over here and look at it this way. I'm gonna stay over here and look at it this way. How many actual UFO sightings that people had where they say, yo, we saw a Bigfoot get come out of this UFO, or get dropped off by a UFO, or get picked up by a UFO. The whole invasion, Chestnut Ridge invasion. The whole thing was about UFO, Bigfoot, and you appearing after UFO sightings. So you have to look at it all. If you're not looking at all of it, you're never going to get any of it. You know what I mean?
And let me ask you this, Chris. This is a question for you. Have you, and you've done a lot of research and a lot of, in fact, we met at a UFO convention there in San Antonio. So obviously, but have you looked into the prevalence of twins being abductees? Because it's
a little tiny bit, and I've found that there are several situations where identical twins have been abducted. Don't really remember off the top of my head any of the details, but it seems to me like most of them were females.
Yeah.
It just, from what I could remember.
I know there's a case of identical twin females up in the Maine area, I think it is, Maine, Rhode Island area that were lifelong abductees. I can't think of their names right now, but they actually talked about having ovum taken from them and having hybrid kids shown to them. I haven't seen any of that. I don't want to see any of that. I mean, you guys.
That you remember.
Don't. Hey. We won't stop that. We don't. I got the 5 here. Right. That's all I need to know. I don't need If there is, well, hey,
Well, you know, I mean, because you know, when you go aboard these craft and things happen, you don't always know. I mean, you come back and then you do start to remember. It's like, is that a dream? One of my friend, like I said, my friend Chad, he was abducted multiple times since we were teenagers, and he'll have memories and he'll have whole days where he just sleepwalks through the day and he can't remember anything. It's like having well, the way he describes it is having a concussion. You know, I mean, it's a weird thing. I mean, and I've talked to him many times over the years, and we're not like best friends. You know, when you grow up, you kind of lose touch with people, and you get back in touch with them. You know, and when I've talked to him, he's told me before. You know, like I'll have days. He's like, where I don't remember anything, and I think it's and you know what I think it is. I think it's this stuff that they give abductees. And I think it messes with your brain. It's like it's got to be some sort of powerful drug that is, you know, that they use to knock you out.
Uh, I have looked into this. I'll mention this. I know it's going to sound a little sketchy, but I have looked up the increase in marijuana use in abductees, and it tends to be high. I don't know why it's that. I don't know why it's that way, but I've done a little research on it. It tends to be high. Don't know if there's a correlation. I just put that out there because I partake. So I'm just saying.
I think it's self-medication too. I think that's a big part of it. Yeah.
I think it possibly could be because it's like a lot of people just use like me. I'd use it to like chill out. A lot of people use it to just get stupid, but I feel it. A lot of people have said that like they use it to like just forget that that's going on or it's going on around them because there's nothing you can do about it. And in the end, I mean, there's been instances I believe where people have said certain things and these things have left them alone. But for the most part, you can't do anything about it if they're coming through your walls. They're taking you through your walls or taking you out of your car.
Snatching you away from your significant other. Like your partner's was laying right on the bed next to you and they never wake up. Which that happens a lot in abduction.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier. Another thing too, like how many people, you know, I come across this every day, not just with abductees, but just with this whole, with ghosts, Bigfoot, whatever it is. There are people and they don't tell like everybody, you know, there's no way to catalog these encounters because people don't tell everybody, you know, and a lot of people who see, just like people, let's just say people that live in a house that has activity. You know, I used to work with a guy at a call center. It was just a part-time job. I was with my brother. And I kid you not, this guy, he was a nice guy, but we'd be sitting there and in between calls, he would sit there and nod off like he was going to sleep. And I thought something was wrong with him. Like maybe he was on drugs. He was taking medication. So at lunch break, I talked to him and I said, "Are you okay, man? You okay, bro?" And he's like, "Man, I'm dealing with a lot, you know." And then a couple days later, you know, I hear him on the phone and he's talking and it sounds like the person on the other side is frantic. And so I asked my brother on the way home, because I only worked there for like a month with my brother. And I said, "What's the deal with that Philip dude, man? He seems like a really nice guy, but he's falling asleep at his desk. And, you know, the managers are getting upset with him and stuff." And he's like, "Oh, that dude, man, he's got like something going on at home. Like he lives in the house, got like a bunch of weird stuff happening." And my brother was working full time that job. He was doing like 60 hours a week there, which was hard. And then I was working there and doing the club job. And so we were just zombified ourselves. So I asked the guy what was going on. And unfortunately, I never got really very far. I didn't get a whole lot of information from him. He just told me, he goes, "Dude, we moved into a house and it's freaking haunted." And he told me that like didn't know anything about me. And he said, I don't care if you laugh. He goes, I don't give a damn. He goes, I'm getting 2 hours of sleep a night. I want to get the hell out of there. We bought this house. It's and he told me where it was at, and whatever. And it was in a nice, affluent neighborhood, but someone had been killed there. And it had just happened. The people before that he didn't know about it. And so think about it. Like, how many people go through that, right? It's the same, like, this, or they'll have Bigfoot activity on their property. Like, one guy had his dog and his cat taken from him. And when he told people that it was a Bigfoot, they laughed at him, made fun of him, and then went on the community post and made fun of him, in the neighborhood post, and outed him out and said, oh yeah, the guy's claiming he sees Bigfoot, and people were treating him like he was crazy. That's recent. That was like 2 years ago. Now think about the abductees that are suffering. How many of them are out there that they're just never going to say anything. They're never going to talk about it. We come across it every day, whether it is with the Bigfoot activity or Dogman, ghosts, UFOs, whatever. People just don't talk about it because, not everybody's so open about it.
I'm going to be honest with you. My wife doesn't believe in any of this stuff.
Absolutely not.
None of it.
Yeah.
And I was trying to explain something to her, maybe last month or so, and I was very passionate about it, and she just looking at me like I had 8 heads. And I was like, all right, you know what? From now on, this type of topic, I am no longer going to discuss it with you. So I don't talk about anything related to paranormal, UFO, anything like that. And that sucks because that stuff, like UFOs and aliens and stuff, it's played a huge part in my life for my adulthood. Like, me and him will be 40 this year. So it's played a huge part in our adulthood. And when you're not able to get it across with people that you should be able to, it's hard, and it makes people clam up, and it makes them on shut down. I have no problem talking about this stuff. I have no problem talking about it, but just now it's just like, okay, now we won't go there anymore. That's not something we're going to talk about. And it's sad because that happens to a lot of people. There's probably thousands of abductees that are going through same thing. They're being taken at night and their spouse doesn't believe them, or there's an individual he swears up and down that there was a giant humanoid standing in his backyard, or a wife says that and her husband doesn't believe her. It goes on all the time, and that's why a lot of stories aren't being told, because just people don't want to be
called crazy.
Yeah.
And when you dive into this type of stuff, the NPC, when you look into this type of stuff, the NPCs call you crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the whole wife thing too. I was interviewing a guy one time from West Texas about his Dogman experience, and his wife literally tried to take the phone from him. It's not like a struggle or something. And she started taking over the conversation and saying, he doesn't need to be talking about this. He doesn't want to talk about it. And he's sitting here yelling, yes, I do. Can you give me my phone back? And she's hangs up the phone. I assume it was her. And then, I just left it alone. And, a few hours later, he calls me back and he's driving. And he continues to tell me. And she wanted him to go to therapy because he's crazy because of what he saw. And he's scaring the kids and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, wow. And that happens all the time.
I've come to the point where I think the crazy people are the ones who aren't seeing this stuff.
Very well could be, and then you got
I
these
agree
people
with that.
Honestly,
in this community that use this, and they don't believe in it at all. They don't believe in anything. You know who they are, and they just grift and they pretend
See-
like they do, but they don't.
I see that AOS Squatch put in chat that he's seen like a TR3B L-shaped craft. So listen, me and Bass have seen tons of different shaped craft, and I've actually
X-
seen. I
That
actually
X-wing was
saw.
crazy.
Yeah, I actually had an experience where it ended up me being buzzed by a black helicopter. You want to hear that one? That was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So we were anybody, if you can go look it up. Me and Bass worked at the Kutcher's Hotel and Resort. It was a big famous hotel in like the 60s, 70s. Wilt Chamberlain worked there. They called it the Borscht Belt. So we worked
Yeah.
there, and I was a valet. He was a valet. It was me working one night, and I parked the car. I took it up to the big lot, walking down, smoking a cigarette, and I looked up, and I could see 4 or 5 diamond-shaped lights just going across the sky like this. So I'm like, yo, that's pretty interesting, right? So I knew the security guard was into this stuff too. So I walked back down to the lobby and I was like, yo, let's go to the top of the building. So you can in the hotel, when you walk into the main lobby, if you make a left, you can go up to what's called the marquee, and they have the elevator. It'll take you up to the 7th floor of the marquee lobby, and you can get out and hop up, get up on the building. So me and the security guard walked up there, and we sat there for about 15 minutes watching these diamond-shaped lights just float across the sky like this, real slow, and then they started fading out on themselves like that. He walked back downstairs. So that night, I went home and put it on that UFO reporting center, which I'm going to say this. With my experience, don't put anything on that website. All right. So what happened was the next day, I was working by myself. I was sitting in the lobby and I heard a helicopter coming over. And the way Kutcher's main lobby was, if you're standing in the lobby, the driveway is a U shape. This helicopter, which I heard, came down over the trees, hovered over the U shape in the driveway, and then flew over the building. So I'm like, what the hell? And I go through the building, which you go through the main lobby, you make a right, and it takes you to the back door of what's the bar. I go out of the back door, and this black helicopter is sitting over this. What is it? How big was that man-made pond? I don't know.
It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't.
Pond back there.
It's not big at all.
Black
Probably like
helicopter,
4 feet deep.
Black helicopter with no markings is sitting there hovering over this little pond. And when I come through the door, the dude is looking at me. And when I look at him, it's weird as hell because he's got all blacked out helmet, blacked out visor, but you could see this. And all this was like all I could say is pasty. Like it looked fake. That's the only way I could describe it. But he looked at me. The thing hovered there for about 10 seconds. He's sitting there looking at me, and then it lifted off, and then it took off like this. And after about 5 more seconds, I couldn't hear it anymore. It was completely gone. So you can go ahead and report stuff on that UFO reporting center if you want to. I can bring it up and show you the report. Since then, I don't report stuff.
It's kind of that way with MUFON. Same thing with the BFRO. The same thing with Ghost. There's all these. Yeah.
I tried to tell. I went to the Pine Bush UFO Festival one year, and I tried. MUFON had a booth there, and I tried to talk to the MUFON guy there, and he's like, "Oh yeah, interesting. All right, give me your name and information." So I gave him my information, everything like that. He didn't get back to me until 6 months later, and then after that, it was another like year and a half of just telephone tag, and I just like, you know what? I'm not even interested in talking to you guys anymore. So stop calling my phone. Honestly.
Unfortunately, you're going to find people like that in any organization you work at.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't capture their immediate imagination, like with your first couple of words, they're thinking about what they're going to do when they get home, what's for dinner, and then it's like, oh, this guy's boring. I don't want to listen to him. You find that any organization. Unfortunately, they seem to be a majority these days. The old way things used to be done. Like when I reported my sighting to MUFON, I received a phone call, I think within a couple of hours. But then, hey, we're in Texas, and well, I think we're a little more friendly down here. But
I could tell you guys this: when I was doing the work on the Bigfoot, I had one person from the BFRO who was particularly snarky with me, and they thought they were being cute, and they said, "Well, why don't you file your report, your Bigfoot sighting with us?" Jokingly, I think it was a joke, and I told the guy, and he's a well-known guy, and I said, dude, you know as well as I do, I never saw a Bigfoot. I never claimed to see a Bigfoot. And he says, well, whatever it was you saw, if it's, that description, it was probably a mistake, and it was probably a Bigfoot. And I said, no, it wasn't a Bigfoot. And then I had another guy jokingly telling me that I should file a report with MUFON for the UFO. And these people think they're being cute or funny or snarky or whatever. With the whole MK Ultra book, as soon as I had announced it, I started getting these really weird, like cryptic emails, like telling me one of the emails was just, you're treading on thin ice. That's it. Just the email was treading on thin ice. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I better get off of it. Who cares? And then I got these weird, I had to put them on Facebook. There was a bunch of them when I wrote the Dogman book, and they were telling me about this. And I took an entire chapter out, even though I had Ken and Barton and everybody telling me, leave it in there, leave it in. Don't do that, But I didn't want the problems. I didn't want the trouble. And so I came to the conclusion that I think a lot of these people are full of crap. And I think that they're disinformation agents. I really do. I think that they're there to stir the pot, obfuscate, and cause, they just cause problems. And they want to scare you. Now people are going to say, well, they obviously got to Josh Turner because he's not going to do the MK Ultra book. No, I'm shelving it for right now because I need like 6 different witnesses to finish it. And there's 2 of them that are not, all of a sudden now they're not wanting to cooperate. There's nothing I can do about that. And also the person that I had helping me with it doesn't have the time now. And so it's just not the right time, but I'm confident at some point in the future, it will get done. And I'm not going to take people making these little, veiled threats and then full on threats. Like I'm going to be scared. I'm going to, I better stop because so-and-so that thinks he runs the UFO community is or whatever. I'm not one of those people. They're not going to threaten me and scare me. And I think a lot of these people are full of crap. And I think that they thrive on fear and they enjoy working with the shadow government because that it gives them a sense of purpose and power, and they get paid for it. I mean, you get paid for it.
Well, go ahead.
And some of these agents were used to drive people crazy. Look what happened with Paul Benowitz. They drove that man nuts.
Mm-hmm.
They've done it with many people. Yeah. Until everyone can look and go, oh, look at this guy. Look, you're going to believe this guy? Look how crazy he is. Well, yeah, because you harassed him until they want to, kill themselves. I mean, it's, and it happens quite a bit. And I don't put any stock into these big organizations that have a narrative. A lot of it boils down to money too.
See, speaking of narratives and everything like that, can we get into the quote unquote new UAP congressional hearings that we had last year, which I think was a complete load of crap? I do.
No, we're not going to talk about that. If that's what you want to do, we're not doing it. No, go ahead.
No, see, listen, hear me out on this, right? Because you've got, but don't get me wrong, these guys do have their military careers. They've done what they've done what they had to do. They're well respected. But to me, they're not whistleblowers. Not a real whistleblower. So we'll go with Bob Lazar, right? We'll take Bob Lazar for instance. Bob Lazar, he's on record saying he had to drive around with a Uzi in his car. because they were trying to off him because of what he was talking about. Now, fast forward to today, a lot of his information is true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right?
Several people that are not registered, they actually can prove they worked at Area 51. Several people have said that yes, S4 did exist. Yes, they did take a bus from the plane to S4, and that all of the descriptions that Bob Lazar gave of the facility match with what they know was there. And the only way he could know what he was telling is if he was there himself.
Like, you take this guy, David, I'm not throwing shade on him, but you take this gentleman, David Goresh, right? He says he was told this, he overstayed, whatever, like that. I have a hard time believing he's not a plant. You know what I mean? Whereas the gentleman that Stephen Greer interviewed, the gentleman that's talked about how he was out, where was it, Indonesia, and he came up on those black ops military gentlemen with the craft and the platform and the trucks and everything like that. Those guys are whistleblowers, right? I'm gonna say his name, Phil Schneider. If Phil Schneider wasn't telling the truth about what was going on, why'd they find him like that?
Mm-hmm. He committed
Ron,
suicide by choking himself to death
yeah,
with
his
a
best-
loaded 9mm in his wheelchair right next to him. That
They like to
It
shoot
would've been a
themselves
lot less
twice in the
painful.
head too. The two shot thing is amazing to me.
His
That always
double
seems to
tap.
happen.
his best friend Ron Rummel,
Mhm.
off in a park. Ron Rummel had everything to live for. Him and Phil Schneider at the time were putting out what was it called? I think it was called the UFO Digest or something like that, and they were revealing a lot of stuff at that time.
You can actually still find that too. If you look hard enough, you can still find that material.
There is a long history of people who have worked in these above top secret programs who went public and you didn't see them anymore because they got off. So to me, these guys sitting in a national congressional meeting in front of cameras with their makeup on and everything like that, you're not true whistleblowers. You may have served your time in the military, you may have seen some things, but that, to me, that's not you. I'm sorry. And that's me being honest. I think that's my cat.
Could be mine.
Yeah, well, I not my cats because I'm at the studio, but I can tell you this: I think there's a lot of people who they get to them, and eventually, what happens is they just give up. They're just like, you know what, and they'd rather live and not be harassed, so they just fall into the disinformation or whatever, and they just give up. I mean, enough is enough, and they want peace, and they just feel like the best way to deal with it is just to capitulate, and then I think they're assigned a handler, and I really do, and I think that's what happens. I think it happens in the Bigfoot field too, and I think it's all connected, and I think that, I did a show with Steven Seagal recently. If you guys haven't heard it, you should check it out. We did the recent one was the AI apocalypse. It's all tied into the UFO stuff too, the alien agenda. And one of the things he said, that I think is very important, he said the CIA had come out with, like, I think it said a 26-page document about demons and said that they're real, that this is what they do, this is what we know they can do, this is what they can't do, and this is this and that. They know all of this. This is nothing. I mean, they have researched and they have put money into the Bigfoot phenomena, ghosts, demons, UFOs, aliens. They know all of it.
A lot of that knowledge came over from Project Paperclip.
Check this out.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe some people don't know this, but during the Vietnam War, they were experimenting with red infrared, like red night vision. And a lot of the pilots who were using these goggles, one pilot in particular, they tell the story of him. He looked out and he started firing like across the way, and he said he saw these winged demons flying at him. And a lot of people who started wearing these goggles were seeing this type of stuff. So maybe that variation that in that lens was able to see something beyond what our human eye is supposed to see, because apparently this guy was terrified enough to start shooting towards his own team of helicopters. So
Yeah,
They
that's a pretty
know
popular
about
story. And another thing that was seen in Vietnam during the Vietnam War was this all black harpy looking creature, and it looked like a nude woman, not like an African American woman, but like black, like shadow black, and the face was like a beak, and it had these wings, and people were seeing it. And then what you're talking about, with those night vision that with the first experimental, they were seeing these like everywhere, and
Mhm.
so sometimes they would catch a glimpse of something with their naked eye, but then whatever they were using was they were able to see them like there's a whole race of these beings. They're everywhere. And that's happened like most recently in Afghanistan. There was a guy that, okay, there was a show. It came on. It was called something Rock. It was about this group of Marines, and it was on Paranormal Witness or Paranormal. Oh my God!
The
It's
rock apes.
no. It was something Rock, and I forgot the name of it. If you look it up, it's Paranormal Witness or Paranormal Survivor, something like one of those. And they OP Rock. It was called OP Rock, and it was a base, but it was just a glorified rock. Is all it was. And the British were there at one point, and then they turned it over to the Americans, and they cycle out. They cycle it out, and then the British will come back, and then another group of Americans will be there. So they had to take their time there, and they each group had to be there for 60 days. And they were seeing some wild stuff. And what ended up happening, I've read a whole thing about it where they go a little deeper than the show does, and you can look it up. I think it's on Paranormal Witness. It's called OP Rock. And at one point, the Russians had been there, and they were fighting against the Taliban and the Mujahideen, and of course, the Mujahideen and the Taliban are not friends. But when the Russians invaded, they kind of teamed up, and so they were hearing like Russian voices. They were hearing different types of, like Pashtun language, which is the predominant, the Afghanis in that area are Pashtun Muslim. And one of the things that they said they were seeing when they would look through the night vision was crazy. They were seeing these like weird looking, what can only be described as like jinn, these like demonic looking entities, and they could see them. And when you read about it, it gets real deep. Like some of these guys, and they interviewed several of these Marines, and they were particularly upset with one that left. Like he put in for a transfer and left early because I guess the rest of them were like, "Look, if we're gonna have to sit here and suffer through this paranormal crap, so are you." And I can understand why the young man left. He just couldn't take it. His mind was breaking. And of course, the military. Anytime you go and tell them anything that is not, the basic, whatever, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. And they're taught from the top to the bottom that none of this is real. We don't, but then when you get into the military industrial complex, then you start to go, you get into people who do know, they are in the know, and they tell people from Congress, they tell senators, and then of course the president, they know that this stuff is real, that these things really happen. And I even take it a step further. I think that they have, and starting with World War II, and I know everybody's going to say the Germans and the Japanese were the bad guys, but the truth is the British in particular were heavily relying on occult information, troop movements, things like that. And there were even stories, I've uncovered stories, and these are from declassified Soviet archives, not just of the Foo Fighters and the Gremlins and all that, but of spirits, of what they called spirits of the air. Okay, whatever that is, the British did this, and the Soviets, level the accusation at them that they were using witchcraft and that they were giving them information on German troop movements. And it was coming from a really large, powerful coven of witches that was based out of Liverpool. This is some crazy stuff. You start reading this stuff and you're like, what in the hell are you reading here? One of my friends is, well, I have a few, but one of them in particular, he's Russian, speaks fluent Russian, reads Russian, whatever. And he's reading these documents and he's telling me, he's translating them and sending me, the information translated as best he can to English. It is a Cyrillic language. And he said, this is crazy stuff. He's not into this stuff at all. He's just, he's a power lifter, a good friend of mine. And he's like, this is crazy stuff. What I'm reading. I'm reading that literally the Allies used black magic. They used witchcraft, in service of the country to defeat Germany and their allies. And it was really weird. Some of these entities, they describe them as being made of black soot, and that they would fly around in the air and look like smoke, but in their true form, they look just like literal gargoyle-looking demons, and that they would appear out of this like ball. They would come into, London to talk to these people that were in Parliament and tell them, hey, this is what they're doing. And they were using divination and getting information on troop movements.
I pose this question to you about that. Did they start using that as off the get-go, or were they using that in retaliation to what, say, the Germans were doing? Because the Germans,
you're dealing with Soviet archives and talking about the bombing of Dresden and why they didn't participate and blah blah blah, and it was really, the thing is, like, as far as I've seen so far, I haven't seen anything saying that the Japs and the Germans were actually doing that, or the Soviets. It was the West. It was England and the United States. I didn't really see anything from any other countries doing it. It was just them. It was just United States and Britain, in particular Britain, and that they were using that. And now I started looking into Aleister Crowley. Now, of course, a lot of people will say that Crowley, Parsons, and the guy from the Ontology, I don't want to say the name because I don't want to be sued, but they were the ones that were responsible for opening up this whole whatever that became what we know as the UFO era. And of course, Roswell and all of that stuff starts coming out. And then, when Crowley, before he died, he was paid a huge sum of money by the British Crown because he was supposedly responsible for the defeat of Germany.
I'm trying to remember what the name of that ritual was. I know it.
Is
The
that the one
Babylon
where
working?
It wasn't the invoking or something like it. Was the name that or something like that?
And Lamb was the guy that he and now now going back to what I was telling about my friend's uncle, like when he died, one of the pictures that I remember seeing, like it was like when Armando, my late co-host, whatever, it looked like Lamb, like the big head and the weird whatever. It looked almost like a cartoony version of what Aleister Crowley had conjured. Of course, Aleister Crowley doesn't describe this alien-looking creature. He describes it as a demon, but it's an alien. That's what it is. Now, are these things that we're dealing with, like if you take the reptilian alien, the Draco looks like a large gargoyle-looking being. I mean, and then you get people, their eyes slitting up, all the time. This is happening constantly. People are, James Bartley, who was on with us last week, and Chris James, you remember, and Bartley, he talks a lot about the reptilians, and we didn't get to get into everything, but one of the things that, we talked about, me and him, just in a private conversation, and James said, it's almost like their masks are slipping, or that they just don't care. Like they just don't give a crap anymore. It's like, well, we have this world. It's ours.
I think they don't care.
Yeah, they don't give a crap.
They don't. Why don't they care anymore? It's because I'd say 85% of the population on Earth, what are they doing every day?
I was just about to say, yeah, they got their heads down looking at their cell phones.
They're missing everything. They got their head down in their cell phone. They're getting their NPC downloads. So they don't care anymore. Like, oh yeah, like all the you can see it in the videos and shows and everything like that. to the point now where they're just like, all right, yeah, we exist. Give us a few more months. We'll be walking around. We'll show you that we're walking around. I guarantee.
Take your phone again, James, and don't light the screen up and just flip it around. Now, folks, look at that. Look at that. It's a mirror. That is a mirror. Now, if you take that phone, that is a black mirror. That's what that is. Black mirrors are used for what? Scrying.
Mhm.
That's what they're used for. It's used for divination. It's used for occultic practices and contacting demons. It's used for contact with spirits. Your TV is a black mirror. You know, it's basically a black mirror. When that TV is off, that's what it is. And you know, I have a friend who he just built a house, really nice, right outside of Houston, and he's like one of my cousin's best friends. I met him through my cousin, but he's a rancher, real smart guy. And he got in touch with my cousin about 2 weeks ago. My cousin says, "Man, you know, Randy's having some weird stuff happen." And I said, "Where at?" He said, "Well, especially out on his patio. He's been seeing like some weird shadow-looking beings, whatever." I told him this. I said, tell Randy to take a picture of the patio. It's a beautiful ranch house patio. He's got like 28 acres. You see the TVs. The first thing I noticed were the two TVs on either side, and they're both facing each other. And I told him, I said, "You got two black mirrors facing one another." Yeah, I told him right there. I said, and then it's octagonal. I said, and you have two of them right there. Just, you know, they're just huge TVs, 70-inch TVs. I said that could be part of it. You know, and he said they're off a lot. So that's what he told me. I said, well, there you go. I mean, I'm not telling you this is 100% the way, but I mean, it does make a lot of sense. I mean, you know, because mirrors are gateways, and in particular when they're facing one another, and black mirrors in particular, you know, I mean, and this guy's not into anything, but his children, in particular, children can see these things. Interesting thing. One of these shadowy looking beings, I got to look at my notes real quick so I can make sure I'm not wrong here. Okay. Bulbous head, black cloak with like these weird looking, like the cuffs coming up, like weird, no eyes. This looks like a big bulbous head. But just like the indecipherable features of the head. And this was like an 8-year-old child that saw this, the first person that saw it. So when you think about that, like that sounds like it could be alien in nature of some kind. But then you kind of straddle the line between, well, what is an alien? What is a demon? You know, and then of course there's a whole debate. It's like, are aliens demons? Are demons aliens? I think it's yes and yes. I mean, that's my opinion. I've challenged people. There was one lady who, she is an abductee. She's been abducted, she said, 33 years. In March, it will be 33 years. And she told me, she's like, I don't want anything to happen to, you know, to the people, to the beings that are abducting me. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's almost like a Stockholm syndrome. Like she's developed like to me, a psychosis. Like she won't come out and talk about it. And she doesn't want me to tell her. She wanted to tell me all this stuff, but for me to not repeat it, and she didn't want to offend them. And I said, is it out of fear? She goes, no, I genuinely care about them. I believe that they're doing what they have to do. I'm like, really? Because they sound like demons to me. It sounds demonic. And it's like she's got some kind of, but you'll find that with people who have attachments too. They won't want someone to mess with it and take it off of them. I mean, like they're so parasitized by it.
Did you ever ask her how long it took her to come to that conclusion?
No.
Like, was
I
she
didn't.
terrified at first, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just listened. I didn't even get to do a lot of talking. It was mostly, and I just told her at the end, the conclusion for me, you know, and I said, look, I would like to get you on the show. And that's, I'm not being insensitive. That's my job, you know, is to try to get her to come on the show and talk about it, or to let me talk about it. And she's like, I don't want to do that. And I was like, okay. And I kind of felt miffed because she's like, you just talked to me for 2 hours and now I can do nothing but sit here and be, and I feel bad for her. And she quit going to church. She quit talking to her family, all for these entities. And I told her, I said, don't you think that if these entities were good, why would they want you to stop going to church? She said, they didn't tell me that, but it's the feeling that I got. And I've come to the conclusion that this is the conclusion that she came to, not me. She doesn't believe in God anymore. She thinks that these aliens are where it's at. You know what I mean? And I told her, I said, that is the problem right there. And I said, and these beings who are feeding off of you, as far as I'm concerned, parasitizing you, and now they've disrupted your relationship with God. You know?
I want to say this for individuals out there that think these things are benevolent, you're sorely mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Because what benevolent being intrusively comes into your home and takes you out of it? Intrusively forces some weird ass experiment upon you.
Yeah.
And then takes that memory away from you to the point where you can't remember it. To all you people that think these things are good, you're wrong. And I'm going to say it again, you're wrong. They're not. All right. If they were good, they wouldn't have snatched me, my brother, and my cousin for whatever damn reason. All right. There may be good experiences out there. There may be. Mine wasn't. And there's people out there like me, like my brother, and like my cousin who have had these negative experiences that get told the shit. Oh, I'm sorry for cursing. They get told it's bull. And it's not bull. And and then you got the group of people, they're benevolent, they would never do that. Like Stephen Greer. I respect them, but you're crazy.
Yeah.
They're not benevolent.
Stephen Greer.
Right? So I'm sorry. I'm losing my cool here. Just it that annoys the hell out of me when they're they're benevolent, they can do no wrong, blah, blah. Bull. If they were benevolent, they wouldn't be taking people from their homes. They wouldn't be abducting people against their wills. They wouldn't be experimenting on people. They wouldn't be taking ova and sperm and everything else and blood samples and everything else out of them for whatever convoluted plan they're doing or planning. Sorry.
I mean, it's frustration. And I think that a lot of it, the obfuscation is bad. The confusion, they throw all this confusion at you. One of the things I see happening all the time, just like in the Bible, it says, I mean, they call good evil and evil good. And it masquerades, excuse me, tongue-tied today, as something that is okay, or at best, it's great. And at worst, it's just okay. And you're supposed to just be, an ambivalent, feeling about it. I can't get behind that because everything that I've seen, to me, it's the same thing in the Bigfoot community. I see it all the time. You have these pack of people who are like, stop saying bad things about Bigfoot. I said, well, Bigfoot needs to stop doing bad things. If Bigfoot stops doing bad things, then I'll stop talking bad about Bigfoot. I mean, that's like telling me to stop talking bad about terrorists. I mean, well, they'll quit terrorizing, and then we quit talking about you. I mean, and so you become the bad guy. But one thing they've done is they've flipped the script, and I don't care who you were fighting. There's never a reason to go and consort with demons to win a war or to get the edge up or the leg up, whatever. And they always try to say, well, the other side, was doing this, and that, but yet we are not hearing that. And you would think the Soviets, who the worst enemies, the communists were the fascist biggest enemy. They were fighting one another bad. It was a horrible, and I think a lot of it too goes back to the history. If you're a history, buff, you know history, or if you're a history major, or if you were a historian. I know a lot of people who were, and they will tell you there was no good when it came to Nazi Germany and communist Russia. It was black on black. It was dark on dark. There was no, well, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys. We just happen to support one of the bad regimes over the other. And, but I will say this, and this isn't me being a, whatever you want to call that, like people, they label them if they agree with them or whatever. If you were to interview a lot of the people who were lived under Soviet occupation from Belarus, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Ukraine, you know, all those different countries who were under their boot heel when the Germans invaded, they looked at the Germans as liberators and they supported them. And then they went in and they helped them. They had a huge, they even had divisions that were full of those people. And they marched into Soviet Union to try to take them out because, according to them, and I interviewed this one lady's grandmother, you know, and I mean, straight up Estonian, and she was like, well, at least they let us eat. So
Yeah.
one person's good guys, another person's bad guy, and vice versa, you know. And so, you know, you can flip the script and say good, bad, whatever. You know, I mean, look at Japan and China. I mean, they're the same thing. You know, as soon as the war ended, some of the worst enemies we had were the ones that were fighting the Axis. We ended up having to fight in Korea. We ended up having a Cold War with China and with Russia. And we ended up in Vietnam, Serbia. I mean, all these countries were actually fighting against the Axis. And then when the war ended, they all ended up becoming the next battleground for us as a country. We had to fight in all those battlegrounds. So it kind of makes you wonder, I mean, you know, and then the excuses that they make, the excuses, oh, well, they were doing this, they were doing this, they were doing this, they were doing this, which we're starting to see less and less proof of that. And they claim that they were behind all these dastardly deeds, you know. But it was the Allies that bombed Dresden, and Dresden was a neutral city, and they bombed it to smithereens. The Allies did.
Mm-hmm.
And now when you look at that particular, you know, and the Russians didn't want to do it. They knew that they were going to get blamed for it after the war, so they were just kind of like, no, comrade, you go ahead, have fun, you know, paid lip service to it, you know, but not really. And they leveled it, and there was a Red Cross center there, and they killed, the Allies themselves killed a lot of Poles, like 200,000 Jewish people were killed, 250,000 Polish people were killed. Those were people that were being allowed to be there by the German government. They were not messed with. The Swiss were there with the Red Cross. It was a neutral site, and they bombed it to smithereens. And then they turned around and said, oh, you know, we had to do this. There was no military installation there. And then I have my own theories. I can't talk about it on the show as to why they did what they did. I know why they did it, but I'm not going to talk about it here. But these are the same people who did that, right? Who tell you about history, but they're also the same ones that are consorting with demon technology, alien demon technology. And to this day, they're still doing it. What do you think fiber optics came from? You know, all the back engineering and everything that we've done. What do you think we got these little walking computers? Kids now looking down at the phone. I've had 2 or 3 people in the last week almost run right into me. I'm at the grocery store with my wife, and I'm like, okay, lady, you're going to walk right into me. Finally, I'm like, hello, and she's not even acknowledging me. And finally, at the last second, oh, and then she darts around me. And this was actually an employee at a store that I was at. And I was like, holy crap, I almost ran right into this lady at the grocery store. And she was not looking where she was going. And she was probably in her 30s, whatever. But you got this whole generation of people now that are hunched over looking down at these scrying machines. And this technology, you know, that has advanced so quickly over the last 100 years, what do you think it came from? It came from these. They're like, yeah, we'll help you win this war. We'll stop the bad guys. Thank you for letting us in. And now,
Like
you'll see the true bad guys.
I would say it's like a vampiric entity
Yeah.
that needed permission to come in.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it. That's
Win
exactly
at all
what it's like.
costs and give them what they wanted, and now they're there. Now we can't get rid of them. There's no.
Oh yeah, like if you look up the I want to say it right, the Greada Treaty, and that was signed for the U.S. for the government to be supplied with technology for a certain amount of abductees per year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happened was the abductors started abducting way more people than they were supposed to, and they weren't bringing people back. And apparently, this is one of the things that led to one of the quote unquote Dulce firefight that Phil Snyder talked about, that he was off about. Now, if he wasn't telling the truth about it, you know what I mean? So there's like I said, it's the 1,000-piece puzzle.
Yeah. Hey, Toey, thank you for that donation. That's the first donation of the night. Oh my
But
gosh.
Miss Sue, Miss Sue, I get that. Miss Sue put in chat, truth, we never gave permission, our governments did. I get that, but our governments are acting as representatives for the people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they took it
Well,
upon
they
themselves.
claim to represent the people, but the only people that most governments represent are themselves. Nature of the beast. Anyone that wants to be in charge of a country is the wrong person to put in there most of the time, simply because they look at it as, I'm the only one that can do this, which means they're going to lie, cheat, steal, anything, because they have to be in that position of power. And it kind of makes me wonder about these super egos that, like, look at how many people in Congress, once they get in there, they never leave. You know, what's up with
term limits? I'm telling you, term limits. I mean, it is ridiculous.
That's a whole nother topic.
The one I figured this out. The ones that have this information, that have these black ops deep state program information, are those life-term senators that are heads of these Senate subcommittees on intelligence, Senate subcommittees on this, and Senate subcommittee on that. Those are the guys that have all the information, and you'll never see it. Like the reason those recent politicians were blocked is because of those people.
Mm-hmm.
I see your donations are picking up.
Yeah. I didn't even realize that was the first one of the night. Thank you, Liberty, for that donation, and Nicholas Bravo, thank you for that donation. We don't do the show for donations, but it helps. We do appreciate it because we're here. But I think that one of the problems too with these Senate subcommittee, all these little fancy terms that they use, it's a dog and pony show. I always say this: if they're admitting to that much, imagine what they're not admitting, because it's always the tip of the iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
Always the tip of the iceberg, and then we're lied to by everyone. And the fact that our governments, and it's not just our government, the governments of the world in general, just giving permission to these vile demons to abduct people, to basically arrest them, detain them, and to turn them loose if and when they see fit. It's a terrifying thing. I had somebody telling me recently, they were like, of all the phenomenon, and this person is not an abductee, but they were talking about it, and they were at my conference, and we were having a conversation, and they were like, the abduction would be the most terrifying, because you have no control. They can come at any time, and then they take you. I've had abductees tell me that they look back and they see their body laying on the bed, and they're leaving in the spirit. I mean, they're being spiritually abducted, sometimes physically too, sometimes spiritually.
Now you bring up you touch on the topic of the abductions and people's spirit being taken out of them. We'll go a little fringe on this, because there's often discussion that these beings are demonic. Now, What if these beings are, say, demonic, but they're they're looking for something specific in certain bloodlines that might, say, make them more corporeal? Do you get what is that making a little bit of sense?
Yeah,
And
vessels.
that's why they're abducting people, and they're looking for specific information in genetics, because now I will say I'm not a theologian at all. I know a little bit about a little bit, but genetics played a huge part in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking that might be, that might play a huge part in this. They might not be aliens. They might not be from planet Timbuktu. They
Mm-hmm.
might be they might just be demonic beings that have been here for a very long time, but we don't know. And we'll probably never get that information.
Well, one of the things I've been told too, and this was by a remote viewer, it used to be in this building, but he told me, and this is something that me and him had talked about on multiple occasions. And he worked with other remote viewers, and the classes that he took, those people that taught those classes, they were taught that by the CIA. And one of the things that they were taught was that there are demons from here and that there are demons from there. And really what they are is just, as I say, a matter of perspective. If you're a human, then these others, here are demons, and if you're an alien from there, your enemy is a demon. That's a very simplified way of looking at it, but they have the power and ability that demons have, and which one includes interdimensional travel. And they can travel up to the fifth density, but they can't go beyond that. And that's a reason for that, because after that, you go to heaven. That's the 6th, 7th, and 8th levels. You're not allowed. That's why it says in the Quran that the jinn can travel up to the 5th heaven, which is not really heaven, but it's the highest that they can go to, and they can eavesdrop on the angels. Now, the Bible basically tells us, that these beings have been here for a very, very long time. Now, they can masquerade as anything, but if you were to learn interplanetary travel and say that you were able to bend space and time, which if you just look up Kozarev's mirror, we can do it. That's a very crude invention that happened in the 1950s, and it worked. So imagine now what they could do with these scrying mirrors we're walking around with. Interdimensional travel ain't nothing. They can walk in and out like it's nothing. But if you were a race of beings and say you were at war with another race of beings, right? And you learned interdimensional travel and you went to go to another land, well, wouldn't your enemies follow you there and try to cause interference and obfuscate and cause a bunch of problems? I myself have had problems with people on the internet here, being trolls and being stupid and whatever. And yeah, they're very much demonic, and they'll follow me anywhere I go to try to wreak havoc and cause problems. Same thing goes with these guys. If one comes, the others are going to come. So let's say you have the Nordics, for example, who many believe are benevolent and they're just kind of here. Their enemies are going to come here. Their enemies are going to be in, and they're going to have a coalition that's against them, like supposedly is what's happening. The Greys are like biological robots. They're mercenaries. The reptilians are big time enemies with the Nordics, the large Nordics. They have been at war for a long, long time. But then you have another race of reptilians who sided with the Nordics and is fighting against, the Draco, what they call the Dracos, and their biological mercenaries. Of course, and they're all going to follow each other wherever they go, to whatever planetary system they go. And they don't need those craft that you see, and this is my opinion, they don't travel from one star system to another with those. They walk through interdimensional stargates, and then they follow the other ones follow them, the same way. Like if Iran builds a weapon, then Israel builds a weapon. If China builds a weapon, then Japan has to build a weapon. And so it's monkey see, monkey do. So if one comes here, in the form of the Anunnaki, and they were doing whatever they were doing, well, their enemies are going to come. And according to the interpretation of some of these tablets, under the reign of Marduk, who's considered a god, but of course he's just a long-lived being who was the son of Tiamat, which is in the creation stories of the Sumerian, which to me is nothing but terraforming. I can get into a whole thing about that. But Tiamat was, her husband was the god, right? And a lot of people believe that Enlil, that he was the guy, right? And then he's the one that caused the flood because he wanted to get rid of all of his enemies, and including the noisy humans and blah, blah, blah. He was the thunderstorm god, whatever. Whether you believe it or you don't believe it, it's a creation story which has been copied. And then Marduk kills his dad, and he takes over, and he reigns for thousands and tens of thousands of years. During his wedding ceremony, we are invaded by the reptilians. They show up here, and they catch them by surprise, kind of like the Tet Offensive in Vietnam. Everybody's having a good time. Boom, and next thing you know, there's a big struggle that went on and on and on. And so thousands of years is nothing for beings that live 20, 30,000 years. What does it matter if a war goes on for 1,000 years? They don't care. And so I really believe that there could have been this following, that ended up taking place.
And for one, their say space time might not be the same as ours. So
Not at all.
1,000 years for us might be a month for them. They might have been waging war for a month, whereas like it's been 1,500 years here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Or you can walk into like a portal. Like I had there was a guy that told me a weird story. I've never told this one before, but he was in Iraq, and he heard me talking about the Dogman portal thing in Iraq, story I told in one of the live streams. And he says, I can attest to this. This is actually real. And he goes by the name Clue, but anyway, that's not his real name. That's just what he calls himself. But he goes, I've seen these beings. He's like, one of our soldiers was put into one of these portals. He comes back, and it had only been 2 hours. He was there for 10 years. Like, that's how the disparity was for the time. He was over there for 10 years. He comes back, looks completely different. And for us, it had only been 2 hours. And the reverse is true too, because time, space doesn't exist the same way. And it really is just a construct. And all these beings do it, but it's all a manipulation, and it's really all an illusion. And so it's hard to fathom.
I'm gonna get deep on you. I think they're able just to manipulate the code.
The code. Okay. All right. So if you believe in that, that's the thing. I mean, are we really just kind of playing a game? That's why you have the NPCs that are walking around, and is this just like a hyped up, souped up version of Grand Theft Auto intergalactic version?
So it's gonna sound weird. As a kid, right? I always thought like, what if it was a weird thought as a kid. What if we're somebody else's TV show?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's these extra dimensional beings flipping the channel. Oh, we got Wolf over here. We'll watch him for a little bit. I ain't doing nothing. We got Chris James over here. What's he doing?
Kind of like the Truman Show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Intergalactic Truman Show. Yeah.
Now I say that to say this. You've heard the theory of the prison planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I saw a comment in the chat earlier, and it said, what is it? Biologist.
You're like me. We're both tongue tied today. I think these aliens are trying to get our cerebral cortex.
Natural biologists don't ask for permission. So what if our little dust ball here is, say, a planet where they can come and it's just a big farm. because look at all the different species that are on this planet.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You can pick and choose what you want. You can, well, I want to pick a human over here. Oh, you know what? Today we need some samples from some ants. Or we need, you know what? We did see that big humanoid, that big hominid in the woods at one time. Let's go grab him up. You know what I mean? It's so maybe there is something to that whole prison planet thing, but it's not a prison planet. It's just a giant experiment,
Zoo.
a giant zoo for them
Zoo.
that they can
There you
come
go.
that they can come in and take and pick and choose and do whatever they want with. Because not for nothing, the animals in the zoo, they can't do anything. They're in the zoo. Unless
They're
they're gonna.
stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of them do get ballsy and attack the trainers and whatnot, but what happens to them after that? They get put down.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I actually got a story not too long ago here in Texas. And well, maybe I shouldn't say the name of the zoo because, but there's a friend of mine who did security there, and about 10 years ago, and this isn't paranormal, but he was coming around the corner and he sees a lion. There were two of them, and they weren't like, running around or anything. They were just walking along the walkway, and he was like, wow. So he like ducked into a little concession and locked himself in and made a call and said, hey, there's two animals running around loose, a male and a female lion. I don't know how this happened, but apparently there were several animals that were loose that night because somebody quit and decided to just throw their keys and say goodbye. And he was like, dude, go ahead and quit, but don't release the lions, tigers, and bears for me to be eaten by, because I'm just a security guy.
He pulled a half-baked scene. Just like all the animals out. Wow.
It's just a lucky thing that he had a place to duck into.
Yeah.
Lion in a zoo, he doesn't know, well, that ain't dinner.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So,
pretty crazy.
I saw. Look, I'm gonna say something in chat. Andrew Brown said, "I've always wondered if our galaxy is the size of an atom. It's about the perspective." So you know what that put? You ever remember the end of Men in Black? The first Men in Black.
Mm-hmm. The cat had the
cat with
galaxy.
the marble. Yeah. What happened at the end of that movie? The marble was a little plaything for a giant being, right?
Yeah.
What happened at the end of the second movie? They opened up the locker, and it was just this massive station for other beings.
Mm-hmm.
That we might be dealing with something like that, just maybe not in that comedic way.
We could, the black hole could just be a drain, to a tub. It's like, oh, what happens if you go down the black hole?
Better be the tub than the other thing.
Well, yeah, the toilet. What are your thoughts on that, Chris? What do you think of all this?
If you sit down and you think too hard about a lot of this stuff, I think it'll just make people crazy. My best bet is to go with what I can see, which isn't necessarily that good of a thing, considering what we see is what our brain interprets what is in front of us. But if you get too wrapped up into prison planet, zoo planet, creatures stepping through dimensions into our planet to do nefarious things, it just really makes your life miserable. As opposed to if you look at it like, okay, there are aliens, they're abducting people, but as far as I know, I've never been abducted. There are people out there who want to turn our planet into their private place. There are people out there that want to tell the rest of us how to live, what we can and can't do with ourselves. If you just think about it too hard, too long, it drives people crazy. We don't know what the aliens are doing that are coming into our planet. We don't know how they're coming to our planet. So the best we can do is keep our eyes open and try to figure out what's going on. And hopefully, once we understand it a little further, then maybe there's something we can do to either stop it or to side with the right aliens, which that would be a completely enormous task. It would be trying to decide, should we side with the Nazis or should we side with the commies?
Yeah.
When when you decide you're going to dance with the devil, he gets the lead. And then once you're in his possession, you're never going to get away.
Yeah. There's some comments here. Nick C, he says something very interesting here. He says, I'm of the same opinion as H.P. Lovecraft. Man is only meant to know so much. If we knew of the truth of reality of things, we'd go insane. That's probably true. We're just not, with our little three-dimensional brains and what we know, it's just really hard to say, what we're dealing with. And,
Well, look at all right. So we'll look at it this way. There are some people who have experienced something, right? Be it a cryptid or UFO, aliens, what have you, that it broke their mind. You know what I mean? Like something just snapped, and some of them have gone catatonic. They've ended up in mental hospitals. Some of them have never been the same again. So a lot of that goes on too.
So let me take some questions from the audience here. If anybody has any questions for Truth, Bass, or Chris James, or myself, put them in capital letters, and then we're going to do a giveaway here. We're going to give something away. And I'm going to let you guys pick the people. No, Nick C says, thanks for the shout out. Nick, thanks for the good question. I mean, there's some pretty good questions here. Andrew Brown says, we will never know because we live in a materialistic world and we're meant to be spiritual. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Miss Teza says, Lucifer, aka Prometheus. See, give the gift of knowledge. And it was actually the fallen. Now, there's two different things. I'm going to say that really quickly. I'm not going to get into a big dissertation, but the fallen are the 200 watchers. The rebellious that's Lucifer and his guys, and that predates the fallen because it refers to the watchers in Enoch as having to succumb to basically what Satan had done.
What do we think? What do we think of karma? I think karma is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
What you put out comes back to you, and sometimes it comes back to you tenfold.
Oh, yes.
So yes, I completely believe in karma.
People that use this lifetime for their own advancement, despite of what damage they do to the little guys, the rest of the planet, someday they're going to wake up either in the down under, or they're going to wake up in their next life wondering, why am I a cockroach? Karma, it's kind of like, this is a weird simile. It's kind of like Groundhog's Day, the movie. You're just going to keep reliving this lifetime over and over until you get it right.
Yeah. The will of Dharma, as they say.
Joshua Hagan asked, any sleep paralysis? No, I cannot remember if I've ever experienced sleep paralysis. All I can tell you, I've woken up, like I said earlier in the show, I've woken up with different clothes on, my clothes backwards. Recently I've woke up completely naked, and I don't sleep naked. So there's that type of stuff.
Why that is that aliens knowing so darn much about us, I keep hearing over and over that they can't put our clothes on.
Put the clothes on right. Yeah.
Are they doing this? Are they doing this because they're that incompetent? Or is this some kind of a message that they're sending to people? You might think you're safe at home in bed, but look, your pajamas are now on upside down and backwards.
Well, I remember when me and Truth were younger, we used to wake up in each other's pajamas on random nights.
Yikes.
Dick Richards said, what kind of craft or entities abducted gentlemen? Mr. Richard, I don't know. I don't know what it was, dude. It was a big ball of white light. That's all I know.
The remote viewer said it was grays,
which is the 90% of the abductions, because I believe that they are the mercenaries. I call them the intergalactic mercenaries. They're the biological robots. What they are, they're clones, and they're a hive mind, and they make perfect abductors because if one sees something, they all see it, and so they can go back to their allies and give them the information. And grays, and there's different grays. There's the diminutive little small grays, which are the clone farmed clones.
Mhm.
I'm using terms that I know Truth and Bass and Chris are probably familiar with. It would take a whole show just for me to explain to you that. But the cloned farmed clones of the grays, and then there's the basic gray, and then there's the talls, and then there's the blues.
So the smaller ones are what the term for them are PLFs, programmable life forms.
Mhm.
They're basically biobots that are tasked with the I guess the physical stuff of the abduction, actually going into somebody's house and dragging them out of their bed. Dark Jedi, yes, I have seen the Sean Ryan interviews on military and UFO incidents, and those guys are whistleblowers. Not David Gresh, the guy that got thrown out of the plane after he saw that slab levitating on the ground. They threw him out of the plane. They cost his dad all of his contract stuff. Those guys are whistleblowers, not people that are sitting in front of cameras with makeup on.
Lucy Fanning says, "Why do some people never experience or see anything?" Lucy, I have a simple answer for that, and then I have a long, sort of drawn out, convoluted answer. So I'm going to give you the simple one. Everybody does. Every human being who's not an NPC, and I really think some people are just here as agents of the Kali Yuga. Okay, I'm not going to get into the Kali Yuga, but I think everybody sees it. I just think that how your brain processes it, and if you choose to acknowledge it, a lot of times I'll talk to people. There was a lady at our first conference, Truth and Bass. I know that we were all out there talking at the end of the night, and there was a lady came up to me and she's like, I've never seen anything, but my whole family has seen all these other things. And I said, you know what? I gave her my card and I said, if you ever have anything happen, whatever, because she was there with her sister and her sister's daughter. I said, and then she messaged me. She says, I think something did happen to me. And I said, you know what? And so I took the time to talk to her. And I told her, I said, think really hard. And when I do the lecture, when I talked on the second conference, it came up too. And I said, look, everybody sees at least 5 or 6 things in their life. It's all upon how you see the perspective. You remember it or you don't remember it or what you turn it into. It turns out that this woman has had three. I can't do the number three because my broken knuckle here. 3 different things that happened to her in her life. One of them was a shapeshifter, did something that was cat-like, whatever, and she had made herself believe that it wasn't what she saw. And I said, see, you did have those experiences, but you just made yourself believe it because your dad chastised you when you were a kid on the farm. But that's not what that was. It was a stray cat. Just like my wife, she saw this Bigfoot when she's seen a Bigfoot 2 different times in her life. Once when it was a small white Bigfoot type creature. And I talked with Dana Nadrello about it one time. And her dad kept telling her and her brother that, no, you saw a homeless person. It was a homeless guy. So that gets programmed into your mind that, oh, okay. I didn't see a troll, goblin-looking gnome-like thing. I saw a small, person, a little person, as they call it nowadays. That's what it was. And then you go through your life and everything's good because you've never seen anything. And then there's other people who are like, nope, I know what I saw. In fact, the late Linda Godfrey, colleague and mentor of mine, she wrote a book called I Know What I Saw. And as Linda got older and her views, she started to come out and tell the truth, like just flat out what she believed, not caring about the critics anymore. And she just said, look, these things are not just flesh and blood things like we thought they were. And it's a matter of perspective. And these people aren't lying. They just are coming to the terms with what they saw. They saw an 8-foot tall werewolf looking creature. Why do so many people see the Dogman? Why do so many people see Bigfoot or see crawlers or flying humanoids? I mean, part of the book that I'm writing, and I'm not trying to plug it, I'm just being honest here, the vampires. You have a history of these vampiric looking creatures. This guy that gave me this story from Belarus, I said, so is a flying creature. He says, no flying creature, vampire. Very adamant that was not, he didn't know what this flying creature goes. I don't know the flying being. I know vampire. This is vampire. And I'm like, okay, we
So
get it.
the original vampires from Eastern Europe, they didn't fly, they walked.
Yeah.
All the vampire was, it was an animated corpse that would walk around looking for somebody to feed on. And the reason they avoided daylight is you could see them coming. You see this
They ambush you.
corpse, shuffling down the road, and it's like, well, you're just going to outrun that sucker. Whereas all of a sudden Hollywood gets involved, and when they made the movie Nosferatu, they didn't have an ending. They'd run out of money, they ran out of film, they ran out of everything, and they hadn't finished the movie. And somebody said, hey, we'll have the sun come up and the sunlight will kill the vampire. And all of a sudden, vampires are being killed by sunlight right and left.
Has
It's kinda
nothing
like
to do with it. Neither does Moonlight with werewolves.
the silver bullet. That didn't come about until the Beast of Javadan, when some guy, he had this blessed silver bullet because nobody else's bullets could kill this thing. And now all of a sudden you got to have a silver bullet to kill a werewolf, which it used to be you could just cut their head off with a sword.
Silver, though, is a purification metal, but it doesn't tumble correctly.
No.
Okay? You cannot shoot something with a silver bullet. Now, the thing about the Eastern Europe, you're right. They were more akin to like zombies, but that was more Southeastern Europe. Northeastern Europe, a little different. A lot of them believed in these things. And I think that these flying humanoids that people see are what they believe are vampires. And the reason they believe they're vampires is because they've seen them attack and exsanguinate things, people, pets, whatever. So that's why they believe. And then in the South, and now here's another weird thing, and we're getting off into this other stuff, but real quickly here. In certain countries like Romania, there was a tradition that if a werewolf died, then guess what? If you didn't behead it, it became a vampire. So a deceased werewolf, which is something that they couldn't control, it was actually a curse. And if they were not, they weren't saved and baptized and buried in consecrated ground and beheaded, and the corpse wasn't burned, which is a whole lot of stuff, then they became a vampire. They would come back and they would roam around and have supernatural strength, just like they did when they were alive. And they would just look human and mutilated, and they would feast on people. Yeah. So there's so many different legends, and I'm going to explore that in my book too. Each country has its own the Turkish legends, the two different things going on there. In Turkey, you have Constantinople, and you go further to the west, they're more European-like legends. But then when you go to the east, they're more like Arabic, more Middle Eastern legends, and they get really, really weird. And I think they're a little more deadly, the ideas that they come up with. But then again, they're dropping out of orbs too in the Middle East and the Levant. You get these people who see these green orbs, and the Islamic Arabs will tell you that the green orb is the device, or whatever you want to call it, the vessel that the vampire will drop out of, typically a green one. And that's, and of course, the legend of Ornius, and they call Suleiman, and Suleiman was the one that he captured Ornius by a ring that God gave him. And of course, he captured all of the demons, which are Jinn, and made them build the temple. And it's just a whole weird, we did a whole show on that. But it makes you wonder, though, if all these demons, what if they were just aliens and they were destroyed by Enlil, or whatever God you want to say, if it was God, or the way we believe is God, destroyed them because they were a big nuisance. and now we're dealing with their evil spirits. And our modern technology is trying to give them corporeal bodies.
Ghosts of aliens.
Ghosts of aliens, yeah. Yeah. Very,
Uh,
very weird thought
yeah,
to think about. I mean, it's,
Listen,
That's
I
the
know
first I'd ever heard of those flying
Is-
vampires from Northeast Europe.
it's gonna
mhm.
sound weird, but I know it's gonna sound stupid, but the truth is stranger than fiction. So I'm not putting it past there being vampire ghosts of beings that have been here a long, long time, like say some eradicated alien species. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Look
Well,
how many
and
look how
think
many
of like
stories of ghost trains, ghost
ghost
cars,
trains. Yes.
ghost animals, ghost ships. Why can't there be ghost aliens?
Think of it like this too. Like I had, and this came from my nephew when he was little. He was like, I think he was like 10 or something. He's like 14, 15 now. But he asked me, he said, Uncle Wolf, he was all into dinosaurs, real into dinosaurs. And I got him a dinosaur book or whatever. And he said, why you're into the ghosts and all that? He goes, well, why are there no ghosts of dinosaurs? I said, we don't know. Now, his parents are very, 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 very devout Christian. So am I. But I also believe in reincarnation, which a lot of people are like, no, because everything was taken out of the Bible and this little scrap that was left, they think that that's the only thing that's true. And that little bit of the KJV that we've been left with, which is the bare bones, if it's not in that, then it's not real. And they're doing exactly what the Council of Nicaea wanted, which was to make everybody be under control. But I always made his mother mad when he asked me the question. I said, all of these dinosaurs have now been reconstituted. Their spirits are gone. And as of millions and millions of years ago, there are the spirits have all been changed into something else. And I pointed at the dog and I said, your dog may have been a triceratops, and couldn't get his crap together to become a human. So
Have you ever heard
she
of the
flew out into how are you going to tell him that? Tell him all these weird stories about that is such ridiculous. And aliens are not real. If it's not in the Bible, it's not real. And she went to the point of almost saying that the devil planted the bones, but she didn't go that far. But I said, well, you can believe what you want, until your ears bleed. It doesn't make it true.
Have you heard of the Hebronville dinosaur?
I may have. What is this one?
Several people saw what they described as a small Tyrannosaurus Rex
We get those a lot.
running along the side of 359 to the southeast of town. And out there's nothing. It's cattle farms and cactus. But several people have said that they've seen this dinosaur in that area and as far south from there as into, I believe it was McAllen.
No, there's actually several reports down there. Yeah,
Could
and the
that be the
Raymondville
ghost?
Terror. I mean, there's a whole thing about that.
Could that maybe be the ghost of a dinosaur that they're seeing?
I mean, it's tiny,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a hard time thinking that something from millions of years ago would still have that would be the same spirit. I think it would be reconstituted. The energy gets reconstituted. A good example for me would be think of Transformers. I know this sounds kind of goofy, but think of Transformers. There was one who from Beast Wars. Not talking about this movie. I don't know anything about this. I didn't watch that movie, but the Transformers on the Beast Wars from 1996, I believe it was, the Rhino guy. Now, when they did the trans metals or whatever, I didn't really get into that. I was too old to be watching all that. But there was one character that was bad. He was a Decepticon, and the storyline turned out that he used to be that Rhino guy who was a primal Autobot, whatever they called him, the good guy. And all it was his essence was put into another body, and he got reconstituted, basically reincarnated into whatever. The Transformers movie, not the Michael Bay bots where they're always blowing up everything and the humans are a big part of it, all that crap. But the real like with Unicron where he talked like this, and You had Orson Welles. He was Unicron. And he finds Megatron and them floating in space, and he grabs them, and he tells them, he goes, "I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to give you a new body." And he creates Megatron. He becomes Galvatron. And Galvatron has some of the memories of Megatron. If you read the IDW, which I did, he doesn't remember everything. He's got some, but he's not really, because Unicron didn't give him all of his memory circuits were damaged, so he couldn't repair. All he knows is who he is now. And he knows the story of who he was before, but he doesn't really know who he was. And then Cyclonus, which becomes his right-hand guy, was actually one of the Insecticons, which at one time that would never be one of his right-hand guys, because they tried to kill each other at one point in the G1. So why would this Insecticon be his right-hand guy? Well, that's because he's not that guy anymore. He's someone else. He's Cyclonus, his right-hand guy. So that becomes his buddy. And then in Scourge, they took him. I think he was one of he was Skywarp or somebody, and they turned him into somebody else. And so it very much follows the idea. And you know why that is? Because these all originated from Japan, which is predominantly Shintoism, and Buddhism is their base. So reincarnation was very much just a part of the wheel. And so if you died even as a robot, well, guess what? If you died in Japan, well, you're just going to come back as another robot. And so, American kids are just like, well, I don't know why this is the way it is. Well, I was a kid. I was a very precocious child, and I asked a lot of questions. I said, holy crap. I said, I saw him when he was reconstituting. I think it was Bombshell, that particular Insecticon. And I was like, he's making him into, and then he becomes Cyclonus, and you're like, what? And then, of course, later on, the comic books, if you followed them, which I did when I was young, they explain the past of each one and who they once were and why they are the way they are now. And it's very much a form of reincarnation. It's weird, like Bumblebee, eventually he becomes Goldbug, and then he becomes somebody else, and they don't really have the memory of who they used to be. I mean, it's weird.
Well, I would say we got a lot of. I think we have some of that going on now, and it's becoming predominantly more visual as the years have progressed. That there are people who have been, I'd say, reconstituted. They're back. Like I'm not going to say their name, but whose boyfriend's playing in the NFL Super Bowl tomorrow? Who happens to look like a certain individual's daughter?
Yeah, I saw that too.
So it's in our faces.
Yeah, it's right in your face, and they become. Yeah,
that's a spitting image.
Reincarnating, just probably even working on some of this stuff in bases, bringing genetic clones, bodies, stuff like that.
Well, if you want to go with that direction, look at you could go and look up some of these doppelganger photos where they have old time photos of someone that looks like Justin Timberlake, someone that looks like Johnny Depp, someone that looks like Jay-Z.
That could be
someone that looks like
someone that looks like
someone that looks like
John Travolta.
The
Nicolas Cage. Yeah. Look at this. Aleister Crowley, George Bush's wife, the daughter.
That's his daughter. Yeah.
I mean, and then you look at the guy from Canada. He looks just like his dad from Cuba. I mean, there ain't no doubt in my mind that that's his dad. That's his daddy right there. He's Papa Cuba over there in Canada. I mean, his fake dad was the biggest cuck ever, because he was sending his wife to go have a little commie kid. Let's put it that way. Just be honest. I mean, I look at these situations too. One of my nephews actually was Anthony. When he was young, he said something to me. He said, "Uncle Wolf," and I raised all these boys. I had 4, just like you have 4. But they were all Huey, Dewey, Louie, and then Zane, which was the worst. But you know, I had to raise them. They weren't mine, but I raised them as mine, and so you know I did the best I could. And Anthony, he asked me one time, he says, Uncle Wolf, he's like, these people, if they keep coming back and doing this, they could just do it forever and ever. I said, no, they tap out at a certain point. You know, I said, because the evil in them can only go so far and it can't go beyond the fifth density. I said, imagine, and you know, it looks like they're winning, right? Because they can live, say they live for 1,000 years. I was like, what is 1,000 years to God? What is 1,000 years to us even? Because where you're going to end up, you know, and it says in the Bible to fear the one who can give you the second death. And it says that you will end up in the lake of fire. You will end up in a very, very bad place, and it will go on and on and on. 1,000 years is nothing. I mean, it is nothing. And these beings, when they inhabited their bodies, they lived 30,000 years, 40,000 years. Some of these kings, there were only 8 Sumerian kings, and their reign was 240,000 years, and there was only like 8 of them. So people say, oh, well, those are the dynastic families. Okay, well, then where are the other names? Because there are no other names, and it doesn't make sense to say that because they would have had like an heir and a lineage and all that. No, those were their heirs. And so these beings and what they did and what they're doing now, and I say it like that somebody said earlier with the pineal gland and the adrenochrome, they live for a long, long time, and they can keep replenishing themselves. And they get that from their ancestors, the Anunnaki, because that's what they did. They were harvesting us and stealing our resources. You know, it was terraforming, and people are like, well, this doesn't make any sense to me because it's not in this holy book or that holy book or that holy book, because they're all very, very incomplete. And they were tampered with, and things were taken out because those bloodlines to this day are still in control. You know, that's what I tell people.
Somebody asked, "Truth, what keeps me up at night?" My 2-month-old son.
I knew you were going to say something about the baby because you have a baby, and I'm thinking that's probably what he's going to say. It keeps him up at night.
Yeah. Other than that, it's all right. What we have with there was another comment here. Where did it go?
Somebody asked about if we've ever heard of psychic vampires. Jim Bob.
It's energy vampires. They're people that drain your energy. So they take pride, or they take, I wouldn't call it pride, but they get a feeling, energy when they're being complete miserable pieces of garbage to you, and and them bringing you down to that level makes them feel better, and it's draining your energy from you and bringing it to them, elevating them. That's the way I look at it. But
I just look at it as transference of energies. That's it. You're having a great day, you're having an amazing day, then all of a sudden you come across that one person who's just like, dude, you just feel the negative energy coming off them, and then it turns your good day into a negative day. Happens all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well,
they might not know they're energy vampire. They might not know they're an energy vampire, but that's what they are.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know, because they're being puppeted, but by these parasitic entities. And then typically it's a very low level entity that'll attach itself to somebody. And the person's weak when you're dealing with a bottom feeder entity that's on them, I mean, it's not it's like one guy, he was like ranting and raving one time at one of my job sites. He's like, I got the devil, on me and all this stuff. And I'm like, no, you have a devil. And it's a very low level devil, because he was trying to lift up one of the posts from the fence and he couldn't do it. And I said, now, if the actual Archon was on you, you would just throw that whole fence up into the air, and but he couldn't even do it. So I said, yeah, you have a devil, but it's a very small and weak one. So we're not too worried. So folks, we're going to do a giveaway. I don't know what we should give away. We have so many things to give away. Books. I don't know if Anthony's awake. Anthony, are you awake? I don't know if he's even still in here. But if he is, we could because he would know more about the inventory than me. So I don't know.
Diane said that Bass is the quiet guy. Yeah, I'm the very opinionated one about this type of stuff. Bass chimes in and tries to keep me on the straight and level, straight and narrow, keep me from going left about subjects, which I tend to do quite often.
Some Betsy Barnacle said books.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, we could do that. I mean, or we can.
We could give out some really bad advice.
What about your books?
I got some bad advice for you. Go chase white lights.
I've done that.
Chasing lights in general.
Nothing happened that as far as I know. But yeah, I've been there. The group I belong to, the Laredo Paranormal Research Society, we do things like that on occasion, and so far I don't know that we've lost anybody.
1 second, folks. I'll be right back. Let me go check the inventory, and I'm gonna be right back. See what we got.
Yeah, no problem.
Betsy Barnacle said that's her real name.
I work with a dude named Richard Cash. That's his legit last. That's his last name.
Dude, my manager at Finish Line. Guess what his name was? Chris Venom, and he drove an all black M3. Dark tinted windows, black wheels.
Every once in a while, you get a good one like that. Any thoughts on the mantid beings? I think there's something to it. Now, as you often hear, I've heard and read abduction cases where the mantid beings were seen as like almost like the supervisor, like they're in the back keeping eyes on everything. And I've also heard a story. I've also came across a story about these ones that look like legit evil ants, but they were like bipedal, and it's a really weird story. I'll have, but I generally think the insectoids might actually, the tall grays, right? The extremely tall grays, the ones that look wiry and spindle. What if at a certain point these insectoids, when they get old enough, they start looking like the grays?
All right, folks, I'm back.
That's only speculation.
So let's do this. We'll start with you, Bass. You were very quiet here. Let's pick somebody. If you're in the chat, let us know that you haven't won. And if you haven't won, and Bass, you can be the first one from somebody who says they haven't won. And we'll do a giveaway here. We'll do a hoodie giveaway for the first one.
Betsy Barnacle, are you down near Fort Polk with all those huge spiders and stuff down there? If you're not, go look up the insects near Fort Polk. Be really surprised. Spiders the size of dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paranormal Oz says they haven't won.
Paranormal Oz.
You know, I'm looking.
It's all up to you, Bass. Choose who you want, and then Chris and all three of you just pick somebody, and they'll all receive a hoodie. We don't have mediums or smalls, because they all kind of run a little bit smaller. So a large, if you're a medium, a large would be much better to have. So we're going to give away.
I don't see that many people.
I'm gonna go with.
Hold on, this is on me. Hold on.
All right, there, tough guy.
We're waiting on you, Bass. Tripping up on you. Tripping up on you. I thought you won recently. I thought you did. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. We'll know when the address pops up, Trip. So tripping up on you, he says, I'm a 2X or 3. You don't have to give us your size now, but you got to do it now tonight so I can I can pull it. Because you know what? Actually, as long as you do it by tomorrow, because tomorrow will be the last day of the giveaways for this week, and then we're going to mail off on Monday. Somebody says
I'm going with Paranormal Oz.
Paranormal Oz.
Yep.
So my
like
email
the name.
address is joshturner@prtpodcast.com, joshturner@prtpodcast.com, and Tripping Up on You and Paranormal Oz. Let me know that those are your handles. Send us your size and your address, and we will send it out to you forthwith. Is that correct? Forthwith.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chris. Got it. I knew you would. And then for you, Chris, pick somebody that you think.
Stephanie Meacham.
Stephanie Meacham keeps in capitals. Yeah. I haven't won
several times, so I figure
several times.
He wants something.
There she goes.
I also saw a comment a little while ago. Somebody was asking about, I think they said mermaids, but the last part of the word was missing. I'm pretty sure they were asking about mermaids. And if they'll check out my show, Strange Things with Chris James, my last show was on mermaids. So
about it. We know more about outer space than we do our own oceans. There could be anything out in that water.
What surprised me was there are so many sightings. It was amazing.
There's a lot.
They don't look like Ariel. A lot of monsters.
No, these look like demonic fish people.
Yeah, they're ghoulish.
Well, they not for nothing. They may actually be a type of alien species because not for nothing. How many reports have we all come across of what's the term is unidentified submerged objects, which is pretty much UFO. Pretty much a UFO underwater. There's tons of people that have been on ships that have seen it. Tons of people been in the air that have seen it. So for all we know, these things, the mermaids, may be a species that have come up out of a base down there for all we know, because like we know, we're not hanging out at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. You know what I mean? But say a race of beings with the technological capabilities that they have, that they've shown us with their craft and everything like that, they might be able to build and sustain a working structure or something underneath that pressure of the water. Or it might not even be under the water. It might be actually, you have the water, it might actually be under the ground under the water. For all we know. It's just a theory.
Or if they're just a physical entity that's just been here for a long time.
We won't know until one comes upon the shore and does an interview. That would
then they'll get snatched up by the government. They'll be like, "That was fake news," and then you'll never get it.
There's been a few guys that have been popping up, and they've been catching stuff, and a few of them have disappeared. You had that Andy Cap guy who caught the giant out there in British Columbia. He was off. Then you had another gentleman who he worked on a fishing boat, and he started hearing what was supposedly mermaid singing, or whatever they call it.
Yeah, I think they were called sirens.
Yeah, you could hear it on both sides of the boat, and you could he took his phone and recorded. You could see 2 or 3 things moving super fast alongside the boat. And he recorded this, put the videos out there on TikTok, and he said he made one more video after that said, "Yo, this is on my ship now." And the U.S. government had put a big research container type apparatus thing on that ship after he started posting those videos about the siren noises. Oh, these things are out there. It's just a lot of people, when people are saying, "Oh, I don't see it. What are you talking about? I don't see it." Get off your phone. Yeah. Stop worrying about sports. Stop worrying about keeping up with the Joneses. Oh, I need this new pair of Air Jordans. No, you need to pay attention because one day there's going to be a craft hanging over your head, and you're not going to know what the hell to do about it.
So I did a show with you, Truth and Bass, and we ended up having like several people jump on. I think Donnie Cho came on, and then we had Madeline, and we had Chris Garitano showed up. Chris showed us the what's it called, the Peppers Ghost thing. That was really cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh wow. So apparently people never stop. It's 11:11, folks. 11:11. So apparently over at the AI, they're spreading the rumor about my crotch rash again. Wow. So while we discuss intellectual topics about alien abduction, they're spreading rumors about me having jock itch. Oh, dude.
I don't quite see that as being a international situation. Not even
No,
really.
I just got a message by one of my listeners. They said that, and I thought it'd be a good laugh because these people they have nothing better to do but to talk about me because they're
All right, so Marlena, actually, to answer your question about what keeps me up at night, like it's actually the fact that I might not be able to stop this stuff from happening to my kids. Being the same position that my cousin was with his two oldest daughters, because his two oldest kids are at least 8 years or more older.
Yeah, they're teenagers already,
and that to be honest with you, that's what keeps me up sometimes when I start like really thinking about this subject and everything like that. The fact that you can't, it's hard to stop, and if your kids don't know about it and they're not saying anything about it, it's hard for you to do anything about it. You know what I mean? Like I said, mine haven't said anything yet about it, but I'm waiting for that shoe to drop. You know what I mean? So that's the God's honest truth about what keeps me up at night.
Me personally, I've accepted what happened. It's just this aliens. All right, cool. All right, whatever. I'll deal with it. It's these shadow figures and getting grabbed in my sleep at night that's been bothering me. That's one thing I don't like.
Yeah. I could see that as being a real buzzkill. So, Bass, before we bounce here, you're getting like shadow entities. You're seeing shadow entities.
Yes. Yeah. When was this? Probably one of the main things last year when I started my new job. I met this dude who does voodoo. He's a pretty good dude, but like a week after I'm meeting him, I'm laying in bed. I want to say my left leg is like towards the edge of my bed, and I feel a hand wrap around my ankle and try to yank me off my bed. I've had like I do like 3D printing and stuff like that. I've had some of my 3D prints like move and shift on live streams. Like what the apartment I used to live in, which is right upstairs, I had one night something crawled on top. It kind of felt like sleep paralysis, but you know that feeling when you're sleeping and somebody like someone crawls in the bed with you and you can feel it. Well, this thing crawled on top of me and I couldn't wake myself up. And I finally snapped out of it, went to sleep, and it happened again immediately. And I didn't wake back up until daylight.
Wow. You guys, we got to do this again, and you guys got to record with me too, so we could reach a bigger audience on the podcast, because the podcast actually reaches a bigger audience.
We ain't even touch on the dozens and dozens of UFO sightings. We only touched the iceberg on that one.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you guys, we're going to be doing this all through the month of February. We got Christopher Garetano coming on next Friday.
Big fan. Big
I want to
fan.
be on with him.
And then and so Garetano, I think he's actually in the chat. I just saw it. I just saw Chris.
Yep, there
Hold on,
it is.
let me
White phosphorus, right?
Yeah, hold on one second. Let me see if I can do this. Let me see if I can get it real quick
no,
here.
dude.
Hey, Anthony, do me a favor.
No problem, Chica. I'm glad we got the invite from Wolf to come on and tell our
Send the
tell our
link to
little story.
Garetano real quick. Just maybe come on for a few minutes. Chris, if you're in the chat, I'm over here being bombarded with what people are sending me stuff, what they're talking about over there at that other channel. That channel is the what do you call it? The budget. When you go to the grocery store and you want the budget, the discount products, that's where you go to that channel. They're so out of their depth, and then they got all the rascals over there talking trash. They got a fake account of me. I'm actually on with you guys right now, but there's a fake account that somebody's using of me, the guy from the UK, and he's over there pretending to be me, and he's saying a bunch of nasty, mean things. It's really sad that we're over here actually doing real work, and they're over there talking silly, being goofy, doing what they're doing, whatever.
I'll say this. That's why I've never fallen into that kind of trap. I like stuff that makes my brain work. I don't like mind numbing things. That's why I see that. That's why I'm interested in these type of topics. And not for nothing, in regards to me and Bassett's show, I'm just gonna say I don't consider myself a content creator. I'm just a dude that had some weird stuff that likes to talk about cool stuff. Right? Like, you guys see this stuff behind me here?
Mm-hmm.
That's about 90% of what, like, the stuff behind me, that's about 90% of what our show is. So please do not label me as a cryptid content creator, because I am not a cryptid content creator.
Neither am I. I don't believe that they're cryptids. I believe that they are inhumanoids.
Is Chris Garetano called White Phosphorus Pictures?
Yeah,
that's
because it says I'm here.
Yeah, Chris, I sent you a link. You can jump on just for a few minutes before we bounce, and then we can promo for next Friday, because I'm definitely looking forward to having him on. And yeah, we're definitely going to do it next week, and then the week after. I can't remember who we got coming on a week after. Let me look at my calendar real quick, because I want to let everybody know before we run.
He says, "Where's the link?"
I sent it to your messenger, Chris. It should be in your messenger. And then we're actually going to have a guest on at the end of the month too, on a Sunday, which is unusual for us, but this person can't do it any other time, so I had to do that. But next week Garetano's going to be on the 17th.
It's funny.
I remember who was coming on the 24th.
I actually watched Montauk Chronicles like a week and a half ago when I was on vacation.
Oh, Rob Yox is coming on at the end of the month. That's right.
That's a good.
If you haven't checked out Rob's show, Rob has got a lot of really good stuff. He's going to be a fun interview too. We got a lot of good people lined up, but we got to do it all again.
I just want to say thank you again for having us on, Wolf. Dude, it's always fun talking with you about this type of stuff. When you will start up your Rumble channel, bro?
You know, I've got so much going on, because we're in the middle of releasing an album, and then we're in the middle, like we're on like the 5th song, which I actually helped write this one. Well, a little bit anyway. It was my idea, but my wife is the one that writes, and she took something she had and just tweaked it. But no AI, fake writing, nothing. She did it all herself. She's very good with poetry, and then we wrote the Bear King. I wrote that one with her.
I don't know if you saw me in the back lobby vibing out, but I was really enjoying that song that was playing during the beginning of the show. That one was really good. I like that
Was
one.
that that's the werewolf one, isn't it? I think that's the
Yeah.
werewolf song.
Yeah, I was really enjoying that one.
Okay,
Yeah,
so Garitano's right here. Let me add him real quick. There he is. What's going on, Chris?
what's up, man?
Nothing much. Doing a bunch of work. Hey, everybody, how's it going?
Yeah,
All
I
right.
figured you could jump on
How
for
you
a few
doing?
minutes, and what do you got
Appreciate it.
going on, Chris? Tell us what's going on in the world of white phosphorus.
Well, these notes here are all editing notes for A Haunting We Will Go. I'm strategically writing narration, writing it on because I shot so much footage over the last 2 years. So now I'm finally putting it together and making a movie out of it. And covering the little things I have to do, not to be boring. But the other thing I'm doing is I can't say the network, but it's a big one. And we're doing a series of movies, and one of which is an adaptation of South Texas Blues, which is a true story about what happened on the set of the making of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then there are other alike movies that we're planning. So, and I'm going to be hired to write those and direct something as well. So I can't say much more, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I could
you
say
told
it,
me some, but
Yeah.
my mom, I'm not going to say anything.
but I'm equally as excited about getting A Haunting We Will Go finished and moving on over to finish Monsters Among Us and then start shooting The Phantom Killer.
Mm-hmm. And the Phantom Killer is about the murders of Texarkana that were never solved. Yeah,
Yes, and I have a very unique take on it that I had pitched years ago in the boardroom. I pitched 30 episodes of Strange World. We got 8 greenlit, and it turned into a show. And but out of that group, now I'm making those into these new documentaries. The ones because I came up with everything in those shows. And the Phantom Killer, I had a very unique take on it. A lot of these documentaries and these shows are very either straightforward or they use a lot of the same crutches that you see in every damn ghost show that you keep watching. It's the same thing over and over again. And so I refuse to make these things if it's like anything else. So I rack my brain to really push my imagination to find a better way to present this stuff. Because, these live streams and things like that didn't really exist a few years back the way they do now, like this. And so this covers the ground of these wonderful conversations, and then the podcasts cover other ground. So it's like, as a documentary movie maker, I really want to offer an experience that you want to revisit that's not disposable, and that's why it takes me some time. And there's just certain stories these days, even in fiction, that blow me away because I read the book The Outsider by Stephen King. I brought that up to you. And King had done his research on something called El Cuco, and he brought that into the mystery. But it's really a forensic investigation of a child murder. And you were talking about earlier these shadow beings. I watched the television adaptation of it. I think it was like 10 hours long? It's a mini series, but it just covers the entire book, and it freaked me out. By the end of it, the end is going to blow you away, and it leaves you with a sense of that it's believable, because I think these shape-shifting shadow beings exist in and out of this realm. And usually I'll be very careful about saying these things, but my instinct tells me otherwise. And I've seen a couple of things here and there in my life, nothing too outrageous, but enough to talk about. But then you have people like Billy Corgan, the singer of the Smashing Pumpkins, told that story of watching a shapeshifter before his eyes. So a very, very odd place we're living in. And obviously I'm in good company to talk about this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll have you on next Saturday. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be nice. And the thing is, folks, you're doing things, you're making things happen. I think you and Barton are two of the busiest people in my friend's circle right now. I know you work a lot too. Truth is always. I'll talk to Truth early in the morning before he goes to work.
I'm actually at work when you talk to me.
Yeah. Oh, really? You're already doing you're loading the trucks. I'll be talking to you, and it's like you're already. And of course, Chris, you're always working. Barton works a full-time. He has a full-time business, and then he does the books. He's still writing. He's trying to finish up Spotsville Monster, and then he does the show. And every time I talk to you, Chris, we talk late at night. And it's
Sure.
always like, You know,
Yeah,
and
it's
it's usually
Saturday night and I'm working.
yeah, and it's always breaks, and it's your girl and my wife tell us to
Yep.
stop and take it easy,
Yeah,
and then
she
you'll
was here
message me
early.
and be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Then we'll start talking, and then we'll talk shop, and we have these ideas, and we just go back and forth, and we're gonna work together in the future on something you watch. It's gonna be good, and
I have a solid idea for that. I
yeah, I know,
really,
and I like it. At first, you pitched it to me, and I was kind of like, but I like
if
it.
you
I
could
like it.
plug into my head, you'd love it. I mean, it would. I'm telling you, it's really something
Well,
else. the
we've
way I
we've
keep saying it.
plugged in pretty good on some stuff, and I tell you right now, there's a bright future. I just got the green light to be syndicated, so that's cool. I'm going to be on TV, you know, once a
It's
week or
great,
whatever.
brother.
And I wasn't even going to take the deal. It was just a good friend of mine. He said, "Hey, do it," you know, and I just, you know, whatever I can do to help build the brand and move forward. And, you know, with the book kind of coming to a halt because I wasn't happy with what I had. And I think that's, you know, I think that I'm becoming a better author. I'm not tooting my horn, but when you stop and go, okay, I'm not happy with what I got. That's all you can do. You have to start. You have to just, and I just feel like scrapping it and doing it over, and then simultaneously writing another book. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to focus on that and finish it. 2 books at the same time. I don't recommend it. It was really, really nerve wracking, but I did it, and we're going to do it again, and it's going to happen again. Chris, I have a question for you. I know you're one of the busiest guys out there right now, but what do you think about August, September? Are you going to be able to make it to Texas for a couple days?
I think so. I don't see why not. This is a pretty huge project we're working on, and right now, it's like about to go into official pre-production. So we're going to be months in pre-production,
Yeah.
and so we won't be shooting probably until at least the fall. So
Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll make it to the conference. You went to the last one, and Truth and Bass, y'all were at the first one, and they were, you know, everybody said they were really good. Everybody who I just talked to Chad Lewis today, him and his buddy Kevin, they signed on to do it again. Chad's a wonderful guy, great author, super duper author. He's written about ghosts, he's written about cryptids, and he's a super nice guy. And so I was chatting with him today, and he signed on to do it. David Weatherly's coming back, Lab Blackburn, Ken Gerhard, Barton Nunley, everybody's coming. Chris James, you'll be there. I know you have a newborn child that at that point, Truth will still not even be a year old. So I don't know if you want to go, but we'd love to have you and Bass back.
We're gonna see. I got that New York FMLA, so I got like 12 weeks to play with. So we'll see
Yeah.
what I can do.
See what
Yeah,
you
that
can
would be
do
great.
because it's going to be nice. It's going to be off the chain, guys. We will see you next Saturday here, Chris, and with Chris James, you'll be back, right? And we're going to be doing this every week. So I thank you for your time. I know you're a very busy guy, Chris, and call me. We'll talk. Same thing with you, Truth, Chris, James, any of you, Bass. You know, I do keep in touch with you guys, and so I really had fun tonight. I really
Definitely, I
did.
did too.
And we're going to talk next week, Montauk, right, Chris? We're going to talk
Sure.
Montauk, aliens. We're going to talk. And so stay tuned. A lot of big things in the works for Paranormal Roundtable. If I can get my jock itch under control, that's the only thing I'm worried about is if I can. I got to go to the store and get some cream. It's just horrible down there. I'm a mess. What can you do? I mean, you know,
Maybe
it's like
what you've got is the internet itch.
it's probably what it is. I think it. Yeah, the BS itch.
That's it.
I think all this
Yeah.
this arguing intention is in the air. I really do. I think it's not just in these communities here, it's all over the
It's
world.
everywhere.
Everyone's arguing right now because we're in a state of flux and we feel like we're not supported, and you know, we'll see what happens. But I think this kind of back and forth is happening a lot.
Yeah, and these people, who cares? I mean, they probably got 100 people in their chat. Who cares? And those people are very lonely. They need something in their lives. They need Jesus and they need jobs. That's all it is. So,
I mean, these subjects are so interesting that I feel like, wow, you know, let's just keep our focus on all this stuff, and especially with so much of it happening and everybody feeling comfortable these days to talk about it. Because in the past, everybody was ostracized. You would be
So
called
hard.
completely insane to talk about these things. And people are starting to talk about them. So it's an interesting time. I think more people should listen.
That's
Yeah.
like I said, I think the crazy people are the ones who haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah.
I think those are the crazy people.
They're
Sure.
closed off. Yeah, they're closed off.
Yeah,
So
keep
weird.
an open mind to it. Even if somebody says, "Well, it's not possible in regards to science," well, you don't know enough science then, because it is.
Exactly. And science is very incomplete and ever changing. It's ever
Sure.
It's like
changing.
they always come up with that fossil record. It's not in the fossil record.
Well, what's the saying?
90%
What's the saying? Go sorry.
Well, 90% of the creatures that walk the face of the earth aren't in the fossil record.
Yeah, they're not in the
because
records.
it's so darn difficult to create a fossil. And yet this, Bigfoot, Dogman, they're not in the fossil record.
Yeah.
Like I said, 90% of the things aren't. So
Now, what do they say? Like our science would be considered magic and witchcraft to somebody back in the 1700s. You know what I mean?
Well, they didn't know what germs were. I talked about that on the show last night. That germs, they were like, what are these invisible things? They thought the people that were coming up with these theories were lunatics. You know, so they're going to call you a lunatic because you're coming up with something that's ahead of the curve, you know? Yeah. But all right, guys, I'm going to run. I'll let you guys run. Tomorrow night, folks, tune in to Paranormal Roundtable, 7 o'clock, 7 you know, and we're going to retell stories, encounters people send in. It's going to be good. It's always good. And then next week's lineup is Tuesday and Wednesday. We got the podcast. Thursday, I'm with Blondes and Booze, and I just signed on to do Blondes and Booze again all of March too, because they had such good guest lineup. I was like, man, I got to go and be on there. And so I think they got the guy Tom Witherton. I think he's coming on the end of the month. He's from Skinwalker Ranch. I know they got Lyle Blackburn coming on. I forgot who they got coming on next week, but anyway, Tuesday 8 o'clock on Blondes and Booze. And then go check me out Friday. I have a guest on, always on the live stream. And then Saturday,
when are you not on the internet?
I am always, except for Mondays. And I tell people, go check out Help and Holler because Jesse and Joe are doing some great work, real boots on the ground work. And then on Sunday, I do it again. You know,
that's what Art Bell did.
He's like the Truman Show.
I'm running a business too, folks, and I'm working during the day. I do 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Chris can attest to that. He's been, you know, like up talking to me at 4 a.m, and then I hang up, and then by noon I'm already up and doing stuff, or not even noon, maybe 11 a.m. You know, I sleep for about 4 or 5 hours. I go to bed about 8, and then up and about doing stuff, and I still hit the gym. I just posted the video. If you go to my live stream from last night, I posted the video. I did the incline with the close grip, and I did it 40 times, 225.
Oh, God bless you.
Just to prove a point. People want to talk. They want to talk. They don't know. They have no idea what they're doing. Dude, I have many people who've gone to the gym with me, and I've shown them my workout. And so I'm going to start doing workout videos because I'm getting a lot of people asking for that. And I got a friend of mine who wants to promote a supplement. He's got a supplement company, and he wants me to promote his protein. So I'm going to try it. Now, the last time I had somebody give me a product to promote, it made mine and my brother's beard break off.
You should start your own. What was it? Doyle from the band The Misfits. He started something called Monster Vegan Protein. You should have your own line, man.
I thought about that. And so I got a lot of pictures of me from back in the day because, you know, I'm almost 50. And to do – I did 275 40 times too, but the last 10 reps I didn't extend all the way, so I didn't feel comfortable with it. But I have the video. But I thought about it, and I thought, you know, I got pictures of me when I was in my 20s and 30s, and I looked like an absolute cartoon, you know. And so I was just like, no steroids, nothing, just genetics and a lot of hard work. That's the thing. People are very jealous of people who put in a ton of work, and they're like, well, why can't I do that? Well, that's because you're lazy. And that's like Garetano, you know,
I'm
beast.
nonstop. I have a gym in my house. This is my office, but next door
Yeah.
to this room is my gym, and I go in there. I work out. I mean, I'm not pushing that much weight, but I'm in good shape.
You're in good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in very, very good shape, and Truth, you too, and look at all those books behind Chris James. That guy, this is why I had Chris come on. I met Chris at the UFO conference 2 years ago down in San Antonio.
I got
And
a
when I
pretty big
walked
one
away, I
myself
told my
over
wife,
there.
I said, that is one smart guy. Same thing when I saw Garitano on TV.
Yeah.
I was laying in bed watching TV and I saw him on there and I said, that's a guy I want to work with.
I have
Absolutely.
books all over this house, man.
Somewhere
Yeah.
back here is a South Texas Blues, but I can't find it. It's
It's on
lost,
Amazon,
and,
but I'll send.
I've got the
I'll
book.
send what you. Oh,
He's
you
got
do?
the
Oh,
book.
I've
good.
got the book. It's somewhere back here in this pile. That's why I kept turning around looking, because I was trying to find it, and it's like, I need a librarian.
I'm gonna talk. I was talking to Eric Palazzos from Media Palace earlier tonight or yesterday, and he's the one who gave me the good news about the syndication or whatever. But I was talking to him, and there's a very special link that I have with that Texas Chainsaw Massacre house, and also an alien. Possible alien abduction that goes with that. I talked about it on the show about 2 or 3 months ago. So we're gonna start with that on Saturday. Remind me, Chris, so that we can tell that, because then we can also lead into the book, and we can talk about that.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's such a unique story. This is why these people want to make the show or the movie with me, is because how uniquely written it is. Anybody could write a biopic. I mean, it's not easy to write any screenplay, but this is different. And when you read it, you'll understand. It's really inside the head of a very obsessed man who's 30 years old, who has never done anything. Remember, this is a time where Tobe Hooper had never done anything really, but a few documentaries. And he's about to make this Potboiler, this movie that's supposed to make him a few bucks, but they go into hell to make this thing.
Yeah.
So
that's a really. We're going to talk about that and more, and we're going to talk about the weird abduction thing that happened to Eric Palazzos' family, because his aunt used to own that house, and now where the house once stood, my friend owns a jewelry store right there.
interesting.
I actually got this. He's the one that capped this. This is a boar's tusk. He capped it for me, and when I'm standing there, I'm thinking, wow, right here is where the house once stood that I played in as a kid. So there's a lot of weird connections there between you and me and the house and Eric. And so we're going to talk about all that and more. And Chris, you're going to be there. Truth, if y'all want to jump in, I'll throw you a link too. You can be a part of the conversation. It's whatever. And Chris, you'll have the floor.
Oh yeah, man. No, we'll share the conversation. So many. I caught the last bit of this show tonight, and there was some great things being said and really interesting stories being told. So it's like I'm a listener as much as I want to talk about stuff. But
in your podcast, tell them what yours is.
Oh, mine, Off to the Witch, and it's not specifically a paranormal podcast, but there are quite a few paranormal themed episodes. But I also talk about music. I talk about movies. We had this really interesting episode of a guy named Jeff Paris that I know, and he talked about the idea of selling your soul. He had a very talented guitar player, and there was a guy in Hollywood that tried to become his agent. So he got him in the car. Jeff tells this story. And Jeff was playing alongside at the time, like Guns N' Roses in these garages practicing and other people. And he didn't do what this guy wanted him to do. And you can listen to the story, but he refused him. So Jeff feels like he never made it because he didn't sell his soul. So we talk about the idea of what is selling your soul, because it could be done in an act, something you normally wouldn't do, but you're going to do it to get this person to give you something I would never do. And most of us would never do, but some people do this selling your soul act. And so that sometimes it's a little more of a creative approach and through someone's life story. And so I really focus on that stuff in the podcast.
I think that you don't have to be Robert Johnson at the crossroads to sell your soul.
Right. We talk about him in the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
For
sure. Yeah, that's definitely another subject I want to touch upon too. I really want to write about the 27 Club, but I have so many ideas. I'm like you, Chris.
You should.
Oceans of ideas that we come up with. So we're going to do it all again, folks. I'm going to run. I'm going to let everybody go. And thank you guys, Truth and Bass. Thank you for your story. I'm sorry that happened to you, but you guys
It's all right.
You're in this community now and a beacon of light for others to rally around, to come and tell their story and come forward. And thank you, Chris James, for hosting with me again. Always a scholar. And of course, the great Chris Garitano. Big things coming up. He's already done big things. I mean, but he's like winning the Super Bowl. He's going to win it again and again. He's
Yeah, I
like
had this
Patrick Mahomes.
conversation recently that it's the act of doing it. It's making these things all the time. I want to finish these things, and winning some stupid award means absolute. And mark my words, I mean this, means nothing. I'd throw it in the garbage. So, yeah,
He's like me. Yeah, it's not about that. You've already won the Super Bowl, man. Let me tell you, Strange World, Montauk Kong's Dark Files, you've already done it. I mean, and now you're doing it again. You're going to have a Haunting We Will Go. And your podcast, I've been on the podcast twice, folks. Go check it out. I've been on an impromptu trip. I need to be on your show now, Chris, too. I need to come in and do your show. Let me know when. I only do my friends' shows. I've been offered many times to come on people's shows. I don't know who they are. And I'm like not rude about it. I'm just like, I don't really know you. You know, and I've been accused of being, well, this person acts, you know, whatever, arrogant. No, I just don't know the people. I only do shows with people I know. So, all right, guys, I'll let you run.
all right, everybody.
Take it easy, everybody. Have a good night.
Have
Have a good night.
a
everyone.
great night. Take care, everyone.
Later.
Later. Okay, folks. So that's the show for tonight. And I'm being dead serious when I say that they were having a party over there at the and all these usual suspects showed up over there while we're talking, you know, about real subjects and subject matter. They're talking about my crotch. Now, with a straight face. Are you serious? Like, this is what you go on your show and you have a watch party and you have the opportunity to do some work. And what do? You talk about Josh Turner's private parts. I assure you, folks, my hand through a Bible, I don't have a rash down there. Don't know that I ever have. Might have had heat rash one time when I was in high school from football or something. I don't know. Who knows? Oh man. But that isn't that shows you right there, ladies and gentlemen, what these people do. I mean, like, look at us and look at them. And instead of getting angry and saying, pity these people, because imagine if your world revolved around a guy, one guy, and your whole world and all your friends and all your little buddies, whatever, was all about me. Just the dirty old El Cachino Grande. If you missed it yesterday when I put on the luchador mask and did the shows, it was a lot of people told me it was a funny hour of comedy. Yeah, I mean, this is what you're dealing with. I mean, do you want to hear about these subjects that you're here to tune in to hear about these, or do you want to hear about some guy's private parts and how is just a awful, mean, meanie head bad guy? That's the difference. That's the difference. One day they will all be in a rearview mirror. There'll be a footnote in this community. Some of the people I've fought with in the past who attack me, attack my wife, they're a rumor. People don't even know who they are. I was talking to Rod Nichols and I was like, have you heard of this person? No. Have you heard of this person? No. Have you heard of that person? No. No, because they're not around anymore. That's why. I mean, they're around. They're still being malcontents, but they're somewhere else doing it because they didn't make it, because that's what happens when you're big frauds, you're big hoaxers. And even Mr. Milk Dud, who says he's this massive brand. He's a massive brand, really. Yeah, I don't see you writing music. I don't see you writing lyrics. I mean, what are you doing? Do you know how to write a book, or is it just computer? It's all computer. Throw curses on people. I guess those aren't even working out for you too well, are they? Must really suck. I'd fire my priestess, voodoo priestess. I'd hire a new one. I would hire a new one, try a different one. Anyways, folks, nothing. It's nothing. It's just a sad thing. But I love you all. And I thank everybody who donated. And you know what? Christ loves you too. God loves you. His son died on the cross for us. I believe that with all my heart. He's my Lord and Savior. And as long as you got the true Lord with you, the Father of Christ, you have nothing to worry about. These people can thump beat their chests and say all the mean, nasty things, quote what they know about the King James Version of the Bible, and say whatever they want to say. They wish that they had the brains to even be, 1/10 of a learned scholar, and they're not. They're not. I'm not saying I am saying, but they wish they could be. They know very little about any of these subjects. That's why they walk around out in the woods and they say, we're out in the woods and we're putting our feet on the ground. Boots are on the ground. And they're throwing rocks and saying it's a Bigfoot. Yeah, that's what you do. And then they all get together in a little pack so we can come and attack this guy. This guy's horrible. He's a big, bad, meanie guy. He's on the air all the time, and he's why I'm on the air all the time? Because I have something to say. That's why. Today should be a very good example of the difference. And then you have the Vulture. His wife is on there saying whatever. The only thing I got to say to you and your husband is there's still a video out there that shows you what kind of person you're dealing with that guy. So I don't know what she thinks she's doing. She's in there talking and being funny and goofy. Yeah, you might want to be quiet. When you have that kind of past, all these people, they're basically very debased people. And the video is nothing illegal or bad. It's just shows you like him being unhinged and saying and doing all kinds of insane things, talking about killing people and doing all this other stuff. And all these people, they all have these records. And then they want to come and talk about me. And here's the thing for you too, DW. You were talking about the two gentlemen that were on my show earlier, and then how you once spoke with them. That's a lie. They told me that they never spoke with you, other than when you tried to ambush them on the show or whatever it was that you did. And you talk about you're representative of that community. No, you're not, because every time I talk to somebody from that community, they don't even like you. It's very sad. It's very sad, folks. And this is all they got. And then they're celebrating this little bearded lady who said some things about me. And you go look at the psychosis from this person. The people that come after me are as crazy, and they are as literally as warped as a football bat. Yep. I mean, they are just as just unbelievable. Literally, it's like using a bat to play football. That's how warped they are. The reality that they live in. It's sad. It's very sad. It's not even funny. I shouldn't even laugh, really, because they are, in their minds, they have a psychosis. Anybody who would make a show and talk about someone's crotch. Well, I had guys on, that are doing something in this community, and these people they're talking nanny poo poo, whatever. I shouldn't even be telling you all this, okay? I'm just I couldn't help myself, because I'm just a human too, and I have my own flaws. But I just thought I should point this out, because there's 300 people watching me still. There was 450 something earlier. I don't know what it was. But this is the people that we're dealing with in these communities. They're sad, very, very disturbed individuals. And what they've done is they've made a cabal, like a coven. Let's call it a coven because that's what it is. And they are trying to wish me into the cornfield because they don't like it that I'm successful. They don't like it that when they try to bully me, I fight back and they can't win. And they're mad. You know, they want me out of the way so they can bamboozle you and grift you. They're over here, bring my kid home, whatever, and they're taking the money. What do you think they're doing with that money? How is that money going to help bring him back? Which I had nothing to do with making him go in the first place. Okay, I'm not even going to comment on what happened or what didn't happen because, you know, who knows? You know, I was never really very into what the hell he was doing or what he wasn't doing. I just know he's a fraud. The guy from Abnormal, he's a fraud. The man from the swamp, he's a fraud. You know, the buzzard, the vulture, you're a fraud. Your wife is insane. You're insane. You know, you should stay gone. Now you got your little buddy back. He's over there, you know, and now y'all are rallying behind him, the little midget that thinks that you tell the truth. Well, he's full of crap too. He believes your lies. A willful ignorance, all of you, willful ignorance. Yeah. The sinful six. I don't care. You can call it Sinister Seven. Make, you know, make it the Evil Eight. I don't care. The Numbskull Nine. Terrible 10. You pile as many people as you want on that bandwagon. It's all going to collapse because you're all subpar. There's a few others that I see lurking around, you know, creeping around, and they're trying to create this. They say we're in a conspiracy. They're building a conspiracy to try to take me down. They've been doing it for years now, folks. I found out a lot of things. This has been going on for at least 2 to 2.5 years with different players, but the same core. And it hasn't happened yet. They're so mad. They're so angry. They think that they're going to run people off from working with me. Nobody's running away to not work with me. That my show is dying and that my listeners are dropping like flies. What are you talking about? Like, what is this? This is so ridiculous. This is deranged behavior. There's my numbers right there, folks. Does it look like we're dying? You know, you had your little liar up there. He can't do that 40 times. I did it. He couldn't do this the first conference. I did it. The second conference. He won't do it again. I did it. I'm going to do it a third time. I'm going to do it a third time. It's going to be the biggest one yet. And now I'm being syndicated, and you're just so mad. And I'm going to write these other 2 books. And I'm going to write 2 more, and I'm going to write another and another and another, and I'm going to have a dozen of them. And they're all going to be informative and very entertaining. And we're going to pump out this board game, and we're going to finish this album. And in the meantime, feel free to talk about my crotch. Yep. And bring on all the alcoholics and drug addicts that you want to talk about me. Because you got nothing better to do, and what you're doing, you're just promoting me. You're helping me. People come to me and they tell me, I was watching this other channel and they were trashing you, and so I wanted to see what you were doing. Now, there's not a lot of people doing it. There's about 20. That's not a lot, but it's 20 people, at least 20. And they came and they watched, and now they're loyal listeners because you brought them to me. Keep up the good work. Good night, folks. I'll see you tomorrow night where we'll fill up the chat again.